Chapter 1563. Lu Ping also saw clearly that the practitioner in the conveyance light was a dull-looking middle-aged woman. She had a thick waist and big buttocks, which reminded people of the real body of Taoist who had been made into a puppet. The three of them chased after the puppet almost at the same time, wanting to stop it. At this moment, the three of them had almost the same thought. No matter who the mastermind was, these 7 puppets were clearly their greatest enemies. If they could destroy one of them, they might be able to weaken the strength of the unknown enemy. During the chase, the 3 of them gradually scattered in different directions, trying to surround the real body puppet of Taoist Hu. However, the puppet suddenly sped up and was about to break out of the encirclement of the 3 of them, perhaps knowing the plan of the people behind them, or for other reasons. At this time, a conveyance light flew toward them from the depths of the passageway formation. Lu Ping was the first to discover the identity of the person in the conveyance light. He shouted, "Taoist old ape, stop the real body puppet!" The person was Wise Ape. He was startled to see the 4 conveyance lights flying toward him, but when he heard Lu Ping's roar, his face lit up with joy. He straightened the 15-ton cudgel in his hand and smashed it on the head of Taoist Hu's real body puppet. The moment the 15-ton cudgel was raised, Long Huai Ancestor and Xiang Laozu, who were chasing behind Taoist Hu's real body puppet, exclaimed in a low voice. Both of them looked surprised and doubtful. Although Lu Ping had seen the power of the 15-ton cudgel before, he was still amazed when he saw it again. Compared with the power of the 15-ton cudgel when it had just received Taoist Ape's legacy, the power of the 15-ton cudgel in Wise Ape's hands was undoubtedly greater. Of course, Wise Ape's strength had also increased. This was not because he had borrowed the power of Taoist Ape's 1,000-ton staff, but because his own cultivation base had increased significantly. Back then, the old ape had used the 1,000-pound rod to suppress himself, allowing him to survive 500 years and avoid the rejection of this world. However, it was also because of this that he could not continue to cultivate step by step like the true spirit cultivators who hid in the spirit dimension. When he entered the formation, the old ape's strength could only be considered average among the 18 true spirit cultivators. Even without the old macaque's 1,000-kilogram rod's spiritual treasure, Ouyangming's abilities had been enhanced to the point where he was only a step away from the perfected first realm. Unlike the surprise of Xiang Laozu and Long Huai Ancestor, Lu Ping was secretly delighted. This was because the moment the sword of true spirit stabbed Jiao Daoren, Lu Ping's natal flying sword had also changed like the 15-ton cudgel. After that, there was also a steady stream of pneuma from the flying sword into Lu Ping's body. Originally, Lu Ping was a little nervous, but judging from Wise Ape's current state, he did not have to worry so much. Although the 15-ton cudgel looked powerful and slow, it really gave people a feeling that there was no way to avoid it, and they could only resist it. Taoist Hu's real body puppet seemed to be aware of this momentum. It reached out and clenched its fist. A cloud of rich origin energy surged in its hand, and an octagonal hammer more than a foot long appeared in its hand. It was similar to the heaven-opening artifact crystal hammer that Lu Ping had seen in Origin Wine Laozu's hands, except that it was slightly bigger. The moment Wise Ape swung the hammer with both hands, Taoist Hu had already pounced on Wise Ape. The real body puppet was obviously unwilling to be blocked by Wise Ape, and it was obviously ready to cut off all means of retreat. Although Wise Ape was only a step away from the fulfillment of the first realm of true spirit, it was still an insurmountable gap. With a loud bang, the crystal hammer that was condensed by the real body puppet's essence energy was smashed by the 15-ton cudgel. However, the momentum of the 15-ton cudgel was eventually blocked by the crystal hammer, and could not go any further. Taking advantage of this moment, the real body puppet flashed under the 15-ton cudgel and rushed toward Wise Ape with an imposing manner. While retreating, Wise Ape tried his best to summon the 15-ton cudgel to help, but in the end, he had to take a blow from the real body puppet with his bare hands. The power of this blow was obviously beyond the old ape's expectation. It was not a pure confrontation of real essence divine sense, but a head-on contest of flesh. How could Wise Ape compete with the real body puppet of heaven-opening 7th Patriarch in terms of physical strength, If the 7 real body puppets were limited by a certain rule and could only use the strength of the first realm of true spirit, which gave Lu Ping and the others a chance to take advantage of, in terms of physical strength, the 7 real body puppets still maintained the physical strength of the 7th Patriarch of Heaven opening realm in the past. Thinking about how Lu Ping's pure yang flying sword could only penetrate a third of Jiao Doran's flesh when it stabbed into Luan Daoist's flesh, and how the Laozu's bodies had been repeatedly strangled by hundreds of thousands of sword lights using the Sea of All River sword technique, one could imagine how much the Laozu's bodies had been strengthened. Almost a third of the old ape's bones were broken, and its body was severely damaged. From Lu Ping's point of view, if the old ape returned to the cultivation world, it would be impossible for it to recover from its injuries. The real puppet that had broken through the obstruction was still a step too slow after all. Patriarch Longhua was the first to make a move. The 9 branches of the 9-leaf spirit tree in his hand drew a strange trajectory, and in an instant, it actually pulled 33 clear spatial fluctuations. The spatial fluctuations did not interfere with each other, and the situation was woven into a giant net formed by spatial abilities. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat, and he secretly counted the leaves of the spiritual tree in the Longhua ancestor's hand. Other than 2 of the 9 branches that did not have a single leaf, the other 7 branches happened to have 33 leaves. Perhaps this meant that the Longhua ancestor had condensed 33 origin divine sense. Although the giant web formed by the spatial divine sense was exquisite, it was soon torn into pieces by the real body puppet's sharp claws under the brute force of the real body puppet. The severely injured old ape shouted with all its might, "Stop her! She's going to the depths of the passage to join the other real body puppets and protect Peng Daoren to reconstruct his body." Needless to say, Lu Ping and the other 2 would not let the real body puppet leave so easily. Just as Taoist Hu broke through the space network of the Longhua ancestor, her speed inevitably slowed down. Lu Ping and Xiang Laozu had already surrounded her from both sides. Xiang Laozu shouted, and a tyrannical turtle real spirit confined the surrounding space of dozens of feet. On the other side, dense sword lights appeared in front of Lu Ping, covering half of the void. It was the metal property origin divine sense that Lu Ping had just inherited from Jiao Daoren, the innumerable sword skill. Chapter 1564. Longhua ancestor, Xiang Laozu, and Lu Ping could be regarded as the 3 strongest people who entered the passageway formation this time. Lu Ping alone could destroy Luan Daoist's real body puppet and cut off one of Jiao Doran's arms, not to mention that the 3 of them joined forces. Although Taoist Hu's real body puppet's divine sense was powerful and domineering in fights, it was quickly turned into ashes under the joint attack of the 3 people. The scattered ashes were gradually driven by the starry sky essential chi flowing in the passageway space and gradually converged into a gray stream, flowing in the direction from which Wise Ape had come. "Stop those gray streams, which will also be used by Peng Daoren to shape his body." Wise Ape, who had lost most of his combat power, could only try his best to warn the other 3 people by roaring after blocking a blow from Taoist Hu's real body puppet. Even the ashes of his body were not spared. The real spirit of tyrannical turtle behind Laozu directly opened its huge mouth and sucked in half of the gray stream. Lu Ping frowned and flicked his sleeves. The thick gray stream immediately became much lighter. Then Longhua ancestor also drew a few streams of light with the spiritual treasure in his hand. The ashes of the real body puppet were almost completely collected by the 3 people. At this moment, an angry roar suddenly came from the depths of the passageway formation. It seemed to be extremely angry at Lu Ping and the others for destroying Taoist Hu's real body puppet, and also seemed to be annoyed at the 3 people for intercepting the ashes of the real body puppet. Seeing that the 3 people had finished casting their spells and looked at him at the same time, Wise Ape coughed up a mouthful of blood and said with a forced smile, "I know it's hard to believe, but the old man saw it with his own eyes. The bodies of the fallen Taoist friends and the puppets were all gathered there after they turned into ashes. Peng Daoren is using these things to perform the heaven-reaching secret skill to reshape his body." Wise Ape swallowed and tried hard to say, "Not only me, but Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu also saw it." We tried to stop it, but we were not strong enough. Besides, Peng Daoren and Jiao Doran's real body puppet came back to help, so I had to come out to look for you. Now Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu are doing their best to deal with it. Long Huai Ancestor directly interrupted him and said, Are you sure it's Peng Daoren? Xiang Laozu also asked. Peng Daoren's real body puppet is still there. If it's really Peng Daoren, what about his real body puppet? Why does he want to reshape his body? What happened to the seventh patriarch when he opened the sky? Wise Ape smiled bitterly and said, I don't know about this old man, but that person called himself Peng Laozu, and Butterfly Fairy seemed to believe it. Ancestor Xiang seemed to be lost in thought and said, If it's really like this, then it looks like it's really as fellow Taoist Long Huai guessed. Taoist Ping has surely lost his physical body, and he's surviving in an existence similar to a true spirit. But his strength has surely suffered great exhaustion or restriction. Wise Ape hesitated for a moment and said, I don't know about his strength, but that old man has always been focused on building his physical body. Other than communicating with Butterfly Fairy at the beginning, he has never paid attention to us. Long Huai Ancestor thought for a while and said, This person has set up this big plan for 30,000 years. Why would he build his physical body at this time? Xiang Laozu's eyes lit up and said, You mean? Long Huai Ancestor said with certainty. He must have no choice. The 18 true spirit cultivators must have made him feel threatened. Building his physical body? He even used the ashes of his real body. It can be seen that he's in a difficult situation now. Xiang Laozu said with joy. That's right. There's no time to lose. Let's hurry and join forces with Butterfly Fairy and the others to stop him from building his physical body. Otherwise, once he succeeds and breaks away from the barrier, even if his strength is still limited, I'm afraid we might not be his match at that time. Long Huai Ancestor nodded and said, Even so, from what Old Ape said, the few real body puppets of the seventh patriarch, including Peng Daoren's own real body, are obviously under his control now. It can be seen that the seventh patriarch had a fight here, and Peng Daoren might not be the one who benefited in the end. Lu Ping also had a guess in his heart. Seeing that the two of them had roughly guessed the matter, he simply stopped talking and flew towards the depths of the passage formation with the other three. At this time, Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu were in an extremely dangerous situation. When Peng Daoren and Jiao Daoren, who had lost an arm, came to their rescue, although they were at a disadvantage, because the two puppets had to protect the real Peng Daoren and rebuild his physical body, they could barely hold on. When Taoist Gui's real body puppet arrived, the two of them couldn't even fight back. Under the joint attack of the three real body puppets, if Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu hadn't run away in time, they would have been killed by the three puppets. Fortunately, the three puppets were only guarding Peng Daoren, who was rebuilding his physical body. Otherwise, it would have been an extravagant hope for the two of them to escape. Hopefully, the great intelligent ape could find Long Huai and the other two. Long Huai Ancestor, Xiang Laozu, and the mysterious Lu Taiping were all experts who were not weaker than her. In fact, they might even be slightly stronger than her. Therefore, if the six of them joined forces, they might have a chance. Otherwise, once Taoist Ping reconstructed his body and escaped the restraints of this world, then the quintessence of this world would be severely weakened within the passageway grand formation, and his strength would definitely rise to a terrifying level. At that time, even if the six of them joined forces, they would probably only be ants before him. Butterfly Fairy's eyes flickered as she constantly calculated the strength of the two sides in her mind. She was the leader of the insect clan in the Boundless Mountains, a direct descendant of Taoist Chan's bloodline. For tens of thousands of years, the insect clan had thrived in the Boundless Mountains and rarely intervened in the conflicts of the cultivation world. Therefore, they had always maintained a mysterious and relatively aloof position in the cultivation world. Many secrets about the ancient creation of heaven had been passed down by this clan. However, although this clan rarely appeared in the cultivation world, it didn't mean that they knew nothing about the situation in the cultivation world. On the contrary, through the Spirit Beast sect, which they secretly supported, the insect clan had spread all over the cultivation world. Therefore, the insect clan knew every move in the cultivation world like the back of their hands. Looking at the three puppets in front of her, the butterfly fairy fell into deep thought. Back then, when the 7 ancestors of skysplitting had gathered in the passageway formation, they should have left behind some arrangements. However, from the looks of it, the arrangements left behind by the 7 ancestors had been gradually forgotten by their descendants over time. Among the 18 true spirit cultivators who entered the passage formation, perhaps only the lone Huai ancestor, Xiang Laozu, and herself knew a thing or two about the passage formation. As for the others, apart from Wise Ape who had accidentally obtained Taoist Ape's legacy, Xiao Baiyu and Lu Taiping were also suspects. However, these 3 people were obviously just lucky, especially Lu Taiping, whose strength was simply incredible. She wondered what kind of legacy the lone Huai ancestor and Xiang Laozu had obtained from Jiao Daoren and Taoist Gui. As the butterfly fairy pondered, a 3-inch-long thin needle with a strong smell of blood hovered above her head. Finally it sank into her hair bun, but there was an inexplicable flash of color in the blood. Chapter 1565. If Lu Ping or Wise Ape had been present, they would have been able to see that the blood-dissolving needle in Butterfly Fairy's hand had become very different from before. This change was extremely similar to the changes in their own hands. Clearly, Butterfly Fairy had also obtained the legacy left behind by Taoist Chan's real body puppet. At that moment, Lu Ping and the others had already followed Wise Ape into the depths of the passageway. However, Lu Ping's attention was not on their conversation. In the coarse space, the sword of true spirit was like a happy fish swimming around the dragon of true spirit. Streams of pure essence dispersed from the body of the sword. After being swallowed by the dragon of true spirit, they turned into mysterious runes that were imprinted on the body of the sword. Pure yang spiritual treasures could be regarded as the highest quality spiritual treasures that could be made in the cultivation world. In Lu Ping's opinion, pure yang spiritual treasures should be the king of spiritual treasures. Even the famous 6 great god weapons of creation were only 6 pure yang spiritual treasures. The only difference was that as the spiritual treasures in the hands of the 7th patriarch of creation, they had participated in the creation of heaven and were slightly more famous. They had been nurtured by the heaven-splitting Laozu for a longer period of time, so their quality was better, and they were slightly more powerful. However, in essence, the so-called 6 great god weapons of creation and pure yang spiritual treasures should be of the same level. In Lu Ping's hands, 2 pure yang spiritual treasures had been born. One was the scissors mantis that had been cut in half, and the other was the pure yang flying sword Emoli, which was formed from Jiao Doran's horn of real spirit. Originally, Lu Ping had expected that these 2 spiritual treasures might not be weaker than the heaven-splitting god weapons after being nurtured by his own vital energy for a long period of time. It was only when Lu Ping became a pure yang spiritual treasure and came into contact with heaven-splitting god weapons such as the crystal hammer, the 7-feathered fan, and the wine cauldron of heaven and earth that he vaguely realized that these heaven-splitting god weapons were not as simple as he had imagined. When Lu Ping became a pure yang spiritual treasure and truly came into contact with the origin of this world, he realized that the so-called pure yang spiritual treasure might be the limit of what this world could achieve. However, the quality and power of the heaven-splitting god weapons far exceeded the limits of what this world could bear. It made sense when he thought about it. To a cultivator, becoming a pure yang spiritual treasure was already the limit that this world could tolerate. Which 7th patriarch of true spirit wasn't at the 4th or 5th true spirit realm? To them, this pure yang spiritual treasure was like a 2-meter-tall giant wielding a foot-long sword. How could it display even a tenth of their strength? As for the heaven-splitting god weapon that 7th patriarch of true spirit had left in this world, Lu Ping could clearly sense a great power hibernating within it. However, with Lu Ping's pure yang and true spirit cultivation at the time, he could not activate this power hibernating within the heaven-splitting god weapon. Pure yang spiritual treasures were not the peak of the heaven-splitting god weapon. Above pure yang spiritual treasures, there should be a higher quality spiritual treasure. The so-called heaven-splitting God weapon was undoubtedly a spiritual treasure of this level. However, perhaps because no one could activate it after 7th Patriarch of True Spirit, or perhaps because the God weapon had sealed itself to avoid the rejection of this world, people had always mistakenly thought that heaven-splitting God weapons were no different from pure yang spiritual treasures. The pure yang spiritual treasures that the cultivators of this world had refined themselves, such as the pure yang flying sword in Lu Ping's hands, the scissors in half, and so on, could not be compared to a true heaven-splitting God weapon. It was because of this that Lu Ping had a clear understanding of the true strength of 7th Patriarch of True Spirit, and understood that he had to be respectful towards Laozu of True Spirit. What level would a spiritual treasure reach when it surpassed pure yang? With the increase of the mysterious runes, the aura of the Sword of True Spirit became stronger and stronger. Its aura became more and more unpredictable, to the point that Lu Ping had to slow down the absorption of the origin essence qi. He did not want to end up like wise old ape, unable to control the spiritual treasure in his hands because it was too powerful. However, in the perception of Lu Ping's spiritual force, Emoli, the sword spirit of the pure yang flying sword, was undergoing a huge change. If Emoli was said to have been given life and spirituality after going through the pure yang lightning tribulation, the current Emoli looked more like it had a life of its own. This feeling was extremely familiar to Lu Ping. Back in the battle under Luo Xian Mountain, the water ape of the heaven and earth wine cauldron that Lu Ping had killed with all his might was extremely similar to the current Emoli. Lu Ping could sense that the flying sword Emoli had broken away from the pure yang spiritual treasure and reached a brand new realm. This realm was like the birth of a new life. The various miracles that it had experienced during this period were still vivid in his mind, causing Lu Ping to be extremely intoxicated. Lu Ping believed that this process would definitely be an inevitable experience for his future cultivation. Today's fortuitous encounter would definitely be the key to breaking through the bottleneck of his cultivation in the future. However, Lu Ping didn't know what this magical process was and what realm Emoli had reached. Although the Soaring Dragon Galaxy scripture he inherited also included many other things from the infinite galaxy world in addition to the cultivation method, these things were more like random records and weren't systematic. Obviously, there were no records about the growth of the spirit treasures in the Soaring Dragon Galaxy scripture. Lu Ping, who had temporarily recovered, once again focused his spiritual will on the Dragon of True Spirit. After cutting off one of the arms of Jiao Doran's True Spirit puppet, a pure origin essence was injected into the Dragon of True Spirit through the Sword of True Spirit. This origin essence was different from before. Previously, every time Lu Ping completely broke the origin magic of Jiao Doran's True Spirit puppet, the origin magic would be injected into Lu Ping's heart space as origin magic. Then, according to Lu Ping's will, it would turn into his own origin magic for his own use. However, this time, after the origin essence was injected into Lu Ping's body, it did not flow along his blood vessels towards his heart space. Instead, it seeped into his flesh and blood from his blood vessels. Under the observation of Lu Ping's spiritual will, he could clearly sense that his physical body was being strengthened at an unbelievable speed. As Lu Ping's physical body strengthened, his control over his origin magic seemed to have increased as well. The aura that was initially difficult to control due to the sudden increase in his strength was now released and withdrawn at will. The restrained aura made Lu Ping look more and more unfathomable. Wise Old Ape was still unaware, while Longhua Ancestor and Xiang Laozu frequently looked at Lu Ping in astonishment. However, compared to Lu Ping's control over his own strength, Lu Ping was more concerned about the fact that after his physical body strengthened, he was able to suppress and control the flying sword in his heart space, which had grown to an unknown level. Chapter 1566. Wise Ape had been seriously injured repeatedly, and it was especially so after Taoist whose attack caused his body to be damaged. His strength had been reduced to less than a tenth of his original strength, and the only thing he could do now was to lead the way for Patriarch Long Huai and the others. But at this moment, Lu Ping, who was immersed in the excitement of his strength growth, was shocked. When his divine thoughts returned, his eyes suddenly emitted a sword-like light. Not only Lu Ping, but Long Huai Ancestor and Xiang Laozu also stopped their conveyance light almost at the same time. Only Wise Ape continued to fly forward as if he had not noticed it. There wasn't the slightest sign of this crisis, and Patriarch Long Huai and the others only noticed it at the moment of life and death. It was already too late for them to warn Wise Old Ape at this moment. Senior Ape Little. It was too late for Lu Ping to warn Ling Ming Old Ape. The void that Ling Ming Old Ape was flying towards suddenly collapsed, and countless spatial fragments instantly formed into a dense mass of deadly weapons. Wise Old Ape tried his best to struggle, but the collapsed space firmly imprisoned his body. It was as if he had fallen into a quagmire. The more he struggled, the deeper he sank. The spatial flying blades flew over, and Wise Old Ape only had time to cry out, "Help!" Then, he was drowned in the flying blade storm with a series of crisp clanging sounds. Not even his bones were left, leaving only 1,000-pound staff that surpassed a pure yang spiritual treasure unscathed under the slash of the spatial trap. Ancestor Long Huai's group of 3 had barely brushed shoulders with the god of death, and at this moment, even they themselves felt an extreme lingering fear, and they felt a lingering fear in their hearts when they saw Wise Ape's miserable state. Even they themselves were in such a state, so how could they have the strength to rescue Wise Ape? After a long time, Ancestor Long Huai slowly let out a breath of cold air, and then he said, "What a brilliant spatial trap! It almost deceived all of us as well." Xiang Laozi sighed and said, "Yes, it's a pity that Taoist Old Ape, we couldn't save you in time." Lu Ping's expression was much more serious. Looking at the space trap in front of him, he said, "This danger came so suddenly. How could our whereabouts be so accurately calculated?" Long Huai Ancestor was shocked and said, "Lu Dao means..." Xiang Laozi continued Long Huai Ancestor's words and said in a deep voice, "Our whereabouts have fallen into Ping Doran's eyes. Was this space trap set by him on the spot?" Seeing the disbelief on Progenitor Xiang's face, Lu Ping asked, "If that's not the case, why would we not be able to save Senior Old Ape in time?" Xiang Laozi believed most of it, but he was still unwilling to believe it. He said, "This person's supernatural power has actually reached such a level. What should we do?" Long Huai Ancestor glanced at Xiang Laozi and said, "If it's really as Taoist Old Ape said, once that person succeeds in shaping his body, I'm afraid we'll be in a more passive position. We have to speed up." Xiang Laozi pointed at the 1,000-pound stick spiritual treasure in the space trap that was gradually recovering and said, "What should we do with this thing?" At this moment, Butterfly Fairy's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. She did not expect that she and Xiao Baiyu would still fall into Ping Doran's trap despite being so careful. Moreover, it was under the condition that he had not finished shaping his body. Previously, when she thought that she could not defeat the puppets made by the Sky Splitter Laozu's real body, she and Xiao Baiyu retreated far away to monitor them. They quietly waited for Wise Old Ape to summon Long Huai Ancestor and the others as soon as possible. Unexpectedly, before Ping Doran had condensed his body, his real spirit, which had gradually begun to break free from the restraints of the world's origin, could unexpectedly set up a void trap without anyone's help. It almost trapped Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu in it. In the end, although Butterfly Fairy escaped the trap of the void by a hair's breadth and protected Xiao Baiyu beside her with her keen senses, the 3 puppets took the opportunity to launch an attack. In addition, the real spirit of Taoist Ping, who was condensing his physical body, condensed a magical power to launch a sneak attack from time to time, so they were still trapped in the battle matrix. You juniors were able to reach this step and force me to such a state. You can be said to be top-notch existences in this world. If it was at the beginning of the world, perhaps I would have cherished your talents. Unfortunately, although you didn't ruin my great plan, you have greatly delayed my plan. Even if you die 100 times, it will not be enough to atone for your mistakes. Therefore, all of you must die. In the void thousands of feet away, The starry sky yuan qi that had gathered from the grand array was mixed with the corpses of fallen cultivators, fragments of broken spirit treasures, and so on. Everything that contained spiritual qi and profound qi was absorbed by the starry sky yuan qi. Finally, it condensed in this place, forming a mass of indistinct and chaotic liquid that seemed to be a mixture of various colors. However, within this mass of liquid, a vague silhouette started to emerge. This silhouette continued to absorb the surrounding primal chaos essence liquid. From time to time, it would take the shape of a human, and from time to time, it would take the shape of a rock. As the starry sky essence she gathered around it, it started to grow more and more corporeal. Butterfly Fairy's blood-melting needle was once again blocked by Taoist Guy's real puppet. Although she hated Taoist Guy, it was too late for her to react, because Jiao Daoren had already lunged at her with his sword. One of Jiao Daoren's arms was cut off by Lu Ping, which greatly weakened his strength, but Taoist Guy's real puppet was not damaged at all. Under the joint attack of the two, Butterfly Fairy was still at a disadvantage, even though she had tried her best. During the process of killing Taoist Guy's real puppet, the power of her blood-melting needle had been greatly enhanced by the legacy left by Taoist Guy, just like the Qianjun cudgel and the flying sword Emoli. However, at this time, Taoist Guy's real puppet happened to be the bane of the blood-melting needle, because of its strong physical body. Taoist Guy's real puppet only cared about the protection of its origin, while layers of essence energy armor were attached to its back, making it look like a thick turtle shell. No matter how fast the blood-melting needle attacked, it just shielded its eyes with both hands and blocked the attack. Amidst the tinkling noises, this famous heaven-splitting divine weapon might have become faster and more powerful after absorbing the power left by Priest Chan in his puppet form, but it could do nothing to Priest Gui, who possessed a strong physical body. Every time it failed, it would return in failure. Jiao Daoren's real puppet would always seize the opportunity to attack, which put Butterfly Fairy in a very passive position. She could only choose to dodge and retreat, but Taoist Gui and Jiao Daoren, who were besieging her, kept pressing on. The blood-melting needle! Are you Xiao Chan's descendant? The voice came from the chaotic source liquid, which was rebuilding the body. I didn't expect that Xiao Chan not only left the blood-melting needle, but also left such a trump card for her descendant, completely awakening the power of the blood-melting needle. The voice paused, then sneered. But does she think she can do anything to the old man by leaving behind an acquired spirit treasure? What a joke! How many % of the power of an acquired spirit treasure can a cultivator who has barely completed the first level of the true spirit realm unleash? With a murderous look in her eyes, the Butterfly Fairy cast a glance at Ping Daoren, whose body was gradually being rebuilt in the chaotic source liquid. She knew that all this was under Ping Daoren's control. Otherwise, how could the turtle and the flood dragon, two mindless puppets, have such a tacit understanding, rendering her powerless to fight back? Of course, the Butterfly Fairy knew that Ping Daoren's true spirit was actually stalling for time. Once his true spirit broke free from the source of this world and merged with the rebuilt body, there would probably be no match for even one of Ping Daoren's fingers. However, at this time, the Butterfly Fairy could not even protect herself, let alone have the strength to interrupt Ping Daoren's rebuilding body. As for Xiao Baiyu on the other side, at this time, he was also retreating in front of the puppet made by the real body that Taoist Peng abandoned. It was not enough for him to protect himself, let alone interrupt the reconstruction of Taoist Peng's physical body. You're a human cultivator who mainly cultivates the rock bloodline, but you're actually walking the path of that four-legged snake. You really don't know what's good for you. Peng Daoren obviously hated Xiao Baiyu. At this time, the Butterfly Fairy could only place her hopes on the Longhuai ancestor and the others. If they could arrive before Ping Daoren's body was rebuilt, they might have a chance of survival. Chapter 1567. You have my bloodline, but you went to learn that four-legged snake's swordsmanship. How can I let you do that? Ping Daoren's attention quickly shifted from Butterfly Fairy to Xiao Baiyu. The puppet's various magical powers immediately increased the pressure on Xiao Baiyu. Peng Daoren and Jiao Daoren had been enemies for a lifetime, and they hated each other to the extreme. This was an open secret in the cultivation world. Now that he saw that Xiao Baiyu mainly cultivated the Peng bloodline but walked the path of a sword cultivator, and his swordsmanship and magical powers were very impressive, in the eyes of Peng Daoren, it was as if the inheritance he left behind was not as good as Jiao Daoren's swordsmanship and magical powers in the eyes of the living beings in this world. There was no more insult to make him angry. Peng Daoren had abandoned his physical body and refined it into a puppet along with the bodies of the other 6 heaven-opening Laozu. But in terms of control of the 7 heaven-opening bodies, it was naturally the body that originally carried his true spirit. Xiao Baiyu was beaten up by Peng Daoren's puppet almost at the beginning. Although the broken sword in his hand was sharp, and his swordsmanship and magical powers were also very fierce, under the puppet's crazy attack, there was almost no room for him to fight back. Almost all of his swordsmanship and magical powers were predicted by the puppet before he attacked, and then immediately used one or several restraining magical powers, causing Xiao Baiyu to be restrained everywhere and almost vomit blood. That 4-legged snake fought with me dozens of times back then, and I already know all of his means. After tens of thousands of years of inheritance and evolution, these magical powers are after all still the same. Today, the old man will let you know that these means of yours are simply a joke in the eyes of the old man. You have been on the wrong path from the beginning. Xiao Baiyu did not say a word. In fact, he could not defend himself even if he wanted to now. The magical powers of Peng Daoren's real puppet were like fierce winds and huge waves, crashing towards him one after another. Even if Xiao Baiyu tried his best to dodge, he would be smashed to pieces if he made the slightest mistake, let alone think about fighting back. This Peng Daoren seemed to have made up his mind to show in front of Xiao Baiyu that his inheritance was far beyond Jiao Daoren's, and as a cultivator of the rock bloodline, it was an unforgivable fallacy to cultivate the magical powers of Jiao Daoren. Therefore, Peng Daoren only dazzled the magical powers, breaking all of Xiao Baiyu's magical powers, but he did not completely obliterate Xiao Baiyu at the first moment. Xiao Baiyu was in a sorry state, but what was even more difficult for him to accept was Peng Daoren's insulting method. It was like a cat toying with a mouse. Peng Daoren could have easily defeated him with his real puppet, but he chose to play with him in such a way. Xiao Baiyu had run amok in the world all his life and had never suffered such humiliation before. The real puppet brought with it a 7-colored brilliance, and the entire space began to distort. Xiao Baiyu felt a strange suction force trying to suck him in, and then he was completely crushed. The barrier of sword light that he had constructed with the heaven-splitting sword had already disintegrated when this strange magical power struck him. Useless chickens and pottery dogs, not worth mentioning. Did that 4-legged snake leave all of you with these broken things? As soon as Peng Daoren finished speaking, he saw Xiao Baiyu, who was gradually being restrained by his own magical power, suddenly move with his sword, turning into a spinning top in the void. The heaven-splitting sword swept up a storm of sword light with Xiao Baiyu as the center. At first glance, it was somewhat similar to Lu Ping's all rivers into the sea sword technique. However, this sword technique was extremely fierce. It was a supreme sword technique of the metal attribute. It was more ferocious than the Sea of 100 Rivers sword technique, but it lacked the gentle harmony of the water attribute and the gradual progression of the sword technique. This storm of sword light suddenly arose and directly shattered the divine ability executed by Taoist Peng, and its remaining momentum didn't stop as it surged and charged towards the true body puppet. Shockingly, it seemed as if both sides would suffer heavy injuries. You're using this kind of magical power? Junior, can your body withstand it? When Peng Daoren saw this magical power, his tone unconsciously became a bit solemn, as if he was extremely familiar with the power of this magical power. However, perhaps because he was too familiar with it, Taoist Peng did not expect that Xiao Baiyu would display this kind of swordsmanship. This kind of swordsmanship was fierce and fierce. Although it was often impossible for the opponent to avoid it, it was more based on the practitioner's physical body. It was really a kind of swordsmanship that hurt both the opponent and the practitioner. From Pingdoran's point of view, Xiao Baiyu was a minor repairs cultivator who had not even reached the peak of the first realm of the true spirit realm. No matter how strong his body was, it would not be able to support this magical power at all. If he forcefully used it, his body would collapse before he could injure anyone. But now that Xiao Baiyu had begun to go all out, his temperament was so strong that he was becoming more and more similar to the four-legged snake. Bullshit sword cultivator. Bullshit one sword breaking all laws. They were just a bunch of fools who would not turn back without hitting the southern wall. It was already unforgivable for a cultivator with the Ping bloodline to practice the four-legged snake's sword art. Now that he had learned the arrogance of the four-legged snake, the current Ping Daoran was no longer angry, but rather mad. Since you want to die, this senior will help you. If Ping Daoran had already reconstructed his body, he would have already flown into a rage. Unfortunately, he could only hear Pingdoran's angry laughter. Even the starry sky essence gathering around him had begun to stagnate. Pingdoran had even temporarily reconstructed his body in order to kill Xiao Baiyu, the traitor in his eyes. At this time, Pingdoran seemed to have lost his mind due to Xiao Baiyu's tenacity. However, what they did not know was that at this time, in the void not far from here, the spatial trap that Pingdoran had set up was discovered by the Longhuai ancestor and the others. In the end, only the weakest wise old ape fell into it. Pingdoran did not care about the result of the spatial trap. What he was surprised about was that there were actually 3 people who could see through his spatial trap. Pingdoran could not help looking at the butterfly fairy who was entangled with the 2 true body puppets in the distance. He secretly thought that the strength of these 3 people was actually comparable to the cultivation of this little butterfly insect. Once the 3 of them arrived, there would be 4 cultivators in the peak of the first true spirit realm. This would be a bit troublesome. Pingdoran had already noticed that the four-legged snake was the strongest among them. This was not outside of Pingdoran's expectations. The sleeping king tortoise had always been two-faced, so Pingdoran could reluctantly accept that his descendant had such strength. But what was going on with that human boy? How could he also have such strength? Only then did Taoist Ping realize that he had been paying attention to this human cultivator before. He also had the bloodline of the four-legged serpent, and the same swordsmanship divine abilities, yet he was able to fight evenly with the four-legged serpent's true body puppet. Could it be that he was also a contingency plan of the four-legged serpent? No, how could he have placed a trump card on a human cultivator? The bloodline of human cultivators was the most complex and unpredictable. Even if the four-legged snake had been poisoned by the sleeping king tortoise's poison pill, it would still be impossible for him to place his hopes on a human cultivator. Seeing that the 3 people were about to arrive here, Taoist Ping knew that in his current state, if he was besieged by these people, he would definitely be in big trouble. So, the best way was to eradicate the obstacles in front of him as much as possible before the 3 people arrived, and Xiao Baiyu was undoubtedly the weakest among the 5 people at this time. Chapter 1568. Xiao Baiyu's body was collapsing. The powerful swordsmanship was far beyond the limit of what his body could bear. A storm of sword light swept over, but Pingdoran's puppet didn't seem to deliberately dodge. Instead, it confronted Xiao Baiyu head-on. The silver sword light exploded, and one sword light after another rang out like shattering porcelain. However, the boundless sword light continued to encircle the puppet, and the protective spell that the puppet had cast up before this grew dimmer and dimmer, as if it would collapse at any moment. Xiao Baiyu's body was twisting like a towel that was about to be wrung dry. Blood seeped out of his pores and soaked his clothes. He looked as if he had fallen into a red dye vat. His skin and flesh gradually began to loosen, as if they were about to peel off from his bones. Cracking noises kept coming out of his body, which was the sound of bones breaking. "Boy, how much longer can you hold on?" Pingdoran's complacent voice lingered in Xiao Baiyu's ears like a nightmare, continuously disintegrating Xiao Baiyu's will. Xiao Baiyu dared not to refute, fearing that once he opened his mouth, he would spit out a mouthful of blood. He had to save his last breath. As his body continued to collapse, he could only try his best to maintain the condition of his internal organs. Only then might he have a chance to survive. He can't hold on for long. How long can your puppet last? Xiao Baiyu couldn't say a word. The butterfly fairy was also in a difficult situation, but she could still talk. Although Taoist Gei's puppet was able to restrain the divine blood needle in her hand, Taoist Gei's abilities were equally lacking compared to the two puppets. Butterfly Fairy indeed couldn't break the defensive magic of Taoist Gei's puppet, and Taoist Gei's puppet couldn't do anything to Butterfly Fairy, who was as elusive as a ghost. Fortunately, there was Jiao Daoren, who had lost an arm. Although Jiao Doran's puppet had lost a lot of its magic power after fighting against the Longhuai ancestor and Lu Ping, and its strength was greatly reduced, after joining hands with Taoist Gei's puppet, the Butterfly Fairy was still forced to flee in all directions, not daring to fight the two head-on. "How dare you!" Ping Daoren suddenly roared. The Butterfly Fairy felt as if her head was suddenly hit by a sledgehammer. Her head instantly turned into paste, and she didn't know what was going on. Suddenly, she felt a stabbing pain in her heart. She suddenly realized that she was in a life-or-death situation, and she had no idea what was going on. It had only been a split second since the Butterfly Fairy was attacked by Ping Doran's spiritual power and suddenly woke up. Jiao Daoren, who had lost an arm, had seized the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. The protective magic Butterfly Fairy cast had been silently broken, and a long sword condensed from profound chi was already 3 feet away from her. The Butterfly Fairy's expression changed drastically. At the moment of life and death, she suddenly closed her arms, and 2 snow-white long sleeves floated out, as if countless white butterflies had built a wall in front of her. The sword momentum of Jiao Doran's puppet did not change. The white butterfly wall was shattered in an instant, and the snow-white long sleeves were shredded into snowflakes, drifting in all directions. However, the Butterfly Fairy, who had been hiding behind the butterfly wall, was nowhere to be seen. After dodging Jiao Doran's determined sword strike, before the Butterfly Fairy could relax a little, a stabbing pain several times more painful than the previous one appeared in her heart again. The Butterfly Fairy looked over in horror, only to see that the moment Jiao Doran's puppet launched its attack, Taoist Gei's puppet had slapped away the needle with a single palm. The burning blood needle, which had absorbed the essence left by Taoist Chan and had become much more powerful, had been reduced to a faint puff in the dense blood-red mist around it. The Butterfly Fairy recalled the stabbing pain in her heart that woke her up after Ping Doran's roar flashed across her mind. Presumably, the moment the needle protected its master, the burning blood needle lost a lot of its spirituality, giving Taoist Gei's puppet a chance to take advantage of it. Before Butterfly Fairy could recall the needles, Taoist Gei's puppet had already raised a tortoiseshell and charged at her with a rumbling sound. The Butterfly Fairy's face paled. She knew that she would not be able to escape this time. Even so, she still tried her best to activate her defensive magic, not daring to give up the slightest chance of survival. Amidst the deafening rumble, the Butterfly Fairy felt as if she had been knocked away by a huge mountain. In a daze, she suddenly realized that she did not seem to have suffered the fatal injury she had imagined. At least, the injury was much lighter than she had imagined. The Butterfly Fairy tried her best to pull herself together. Although her internal energy was not enough for the moment because of the heavy blow, she gradually regained control of her flung body. She struggled to raise her head and saw Longhuai ancestor waving the 9-leaved spirit tree to suppress Jiao Doran's puppet, while on the other side, Taoist Gei's puppet collided with Xiang Lao's true spirit, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. At the critical moment of life and death, it turned out that Longhuai ancestor and Xiang Laozu had arrived, saving the Butterfly Fairy from a fatal injury. By this time, the Butterfly Fairy had gathered the scattered internal energy in her body to counteract the tremendous force of the collision. She scanned her entire body with her divine consciousness and found that only her internal organs were slightly injured, which was not serious. At least, she still had 70 to 80% of her combat strength. She could not help but sigh in relief. From a distance came Ping Doran's exasperated roar. Obviously, the timely arrival of Longhua Ancestor and the others had ruined Ping Doran's attempt to kill the Butterfly Fairy and Xiao Baiyu. Thinking of Xiao Baiyu, the Butterfly Fairy was shocked. She turned to look in the direction of the battle between Xiao Baiyu and Ping Doran's puppet, only to see Xiao Baiyu floating in the void thousands of feet away, covered in blood. From a distance, his body was twisted like a ferocious ghost, and it was hard to tell whether he was dead or alive. The Butterfly Fairy's heart skipped a beat. At this time, both sides were at the critical moment of life and death. Every bit of combat strength must be cherished. Although Xiao Baiyu's cultivation was not as good as hers, as a sword cultivator, Xiao Baiyu's strength was still extremely powerful. If Xiao Baiyu died, her side's chances of winning would undoubtedly be reduced. A series of explosions like firecrackers rang out, and the Butterfly Fairy was shocked. Only then did she find that in the void behind Xiao Baiyu, a sword light bloomed like a lotus. In the haze, two figures entered and left the void in the sword light, chasing each other. And the figure being chased was like a headless fly, fleeing randomly. It was Ping Doran's puppet. Chapter 1569. After all, Lu Ping and the others were a step too late. Although Longhua Ancestor and Xiang Laozu joined hands to save Butterfly Fairy, Xiao Baiyu's body was almost on the verge of collapse because he forcibly used the heaven-opening sword art. Lu Ping saved Xiao Baiyu at the last moment, but at this time, he only had a pure strand of Jinyuan left to protect his internal organs, so that the core space was not damaged. However, Xiao Baiyu's outburst was not entirely in vain. At least when Lu Ping took over, Ping Doran's puppet was also riddled with holes by Xiao Baiyu's heaven-opening sword art. Although the puppet still had the power to fight, it was no longer enough to fight against Lu Ping, who was now much stronger and more energetic. At this time, Lu Ping had completed the absolute suppression of Ping Doran's puppet. Taking the opportunity, he glanced at Longhua Ancestor. When the three of them arrived here and saw the situation clearly, Longhua Ancestor and Xiang Laozu eagerly rushed to Jiao Daoren and Taoist Gui, leaving Ping Doran's puppet, which was seriously injured by Xiao Baiyu, to Lu Ping. It seemed that both of them had chosen the strongest opponents, but in fact, they coveted the benefits of the two puppets. Even so, the three of them were still a little unwilling. If only they had come a little earlier. Not to save Xiao Baiyu, but because the three of them might have had enough time to stop Ping Doran from rebuilding his body. At this moment, it was already too late for all of them to abandon the remaining three true body puppets to stop Taoist Ping from reconstructing his body. Under Taoist Ping's control, these three true body puppets would definitely fight them to the death. If they didn't completely destroy these three true body puppets, then they wouldn't be able to concentrate all their strength to stop Taoist Ping from reconstructing his body. The condensed starry sky essence energy had gradually formed a human figure. Ping Doran's true spirit, which had broken free from the shackles of this world's origin, had already entered it. The humanoid figure suddenly moved like a puppet, but it still kept shaking every part of its body, as if familiarizing itself with every part of its body. However, although the rapidly condensed starry sky essence energy could condense into a humanoid figure, it could not transform into a corporeal body. However, the reconstruction of Taoist Peng's body wasn't complete. Large amounts of starry sky origin chi condensed into liquid-like objects that floated in the air and constantly changed shape. Then, as Taoist Peng adapted to his body, the strands of the liquid adhered to his body. At the same time, the body constantly changed in height and weight. It was as if Taoist Peng was not only adapting to his new body, but also transforming it so that it was more suitable for the characteristics of his true soul. At this moment, a pitch-black liquid suddenly seeped out from the void behind the Yuan Qi humanoid figure and gradually condensed. With a heart palpitating and dense killing intent, it slowly attached itself to the Yuan Qi humanoid figure. The moment the thick pitch-black liquid seeped out of the void, Lu Ping once again saw the net of origin hidden in the space barrier of this world. It was this net that had turned the seven Fan Laozu, who had tried to break into the infinite starry sky, into ashes. Even a postnatal spiritual treasure like the seven-feather fan could not break out of this net of origin. It was also because of this net that many cultivators who entered the Passage Grand Array had to follow the killing trap laid out by Pingdaoren all the way to the present. Of the 18 true spirit cultivators, only 5 remained, and one of them was still half dead. The 7th Patriarch had discovered and opened up this world. In order to hide and control this world, they had finally set up this net of origin and attached it to the space barrier of this world. The net of origin was the last barrier to protect this world. It was the net of origin that the 7th Patriarch had weaved using the 49 supreme magical powers he had passed down when he opened up the sky. It was also the foundation for the 7th Patriarch to control this world. Now, the 7th Patriarch was clearly only left with Pingdaoren. Although losing his physical body greatly reduced Pingdaoren's strength, as one of the controllers of this world, Pingdaoren could still use the net of origin to gather items of fortune in this world to rebuild his physical body. However, it had been over 30,000 years since the opening of the world. Had Pingdaoren endured for so long just to rebuild a physical body? The pitch-black liquid seeped out of the web of origin that had appeared in the void. A thick, murderous aura emanated from it, as if millions of vengeful spirits were wailing within it. It was as if all the ferocious aura in this world had been condensed into the drops of black liquid. It was not just Lu Ping. Even the Longhui ancestor, Xiang Laozu, and the others paled when they felt the killing intent. They were filled with fright. The Longhui ancestor swung the spirit treasure in his hand and sent Jiao Doran's puppet flying. He pointed at Pingdaoren's body, which was about to be rebuilt, and cried out, "Baleful beings! Baleful beings! You've actually used baleful beings to rebuild your body! The disaster of Mara! I get it! You provoked the disaster of Mara just to kill people, but you've used the net of origin in this world to gather the baleful aura of dead living beings to rebuild your body." Lu Ping did not know what the Longhui ancestor was talking about, but he saw Xiang Laozu murmur something to the side. A sliver of fear flashed across his face, as if he knew what baleful beings were. In his days, he was almost sent flying by Taoist Gei's puppet. The butterfly fairy, who had just recovered, suddenly shone with a strange light when she heard about baleful beings. She seemed to know what baleful beings were. She then raised the blood-killing needle again. The blood-red mist on it had already faded a lot. She then leapt towards Taoist Gei's puppet. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly sensed that the bloody aura permeating from the blood-killing needle in the butterfly fairy's hand seemed to be quite similar to that baleful being's, but in terms of the heart-palpitating aura, they could not be mentioned in the same breath. Pingdaoren's body had basically been rebuilt, but Pingdaoren did not control his body to launch a devastating thunderous strike against Lu Ping and the others. Instead, he continued to gather the starry sky yuan qi around him. At this time, the starry sky yuan qi he gathered was even denser than before, and even formed a flowing river of yuan qi. At the same time, the baleful beings, which had been accumulating for countless years, spread to Pingdaoren's entire body the moment it dripped onto his yuan qi body, then disappeared into his body. Only the skin color of his reconstructed body seemed to darken a lot in an instant. At this moment, a weird and evil smile suddenly appeared on the face of Pingdaoren's reconstructed body. The moment the baleful beings merged with Pingdaoren's body, the river of yuan qi that had been condensed around his body began to rustle. As if someone had combed through the void, the starry sky yuan qi flowed back to its original place, and gradually began to form 7 rivers of yuan qi of different colors. 7 colors, that's right, they were 7 distinct yuan qi rivers, representing gold, wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and ice respectively. The starry sky yuan qi meandered through the void, like a rainbow streaking across the sky. Chapter 1570. Lu Ping and the others only needed to look at the 7 rainbows of primordial qi to know that Pingdaoren was activating the original foundations of his body. Not only was he activating 7 original foundations at one go, but judging from the endless rivers of primordial qi, it was obvious that Peng Daoren was also taking advantage of the situation to form original powers. Judging from Peng Daoren's current accumulation of power, Lu Ping and the others had no other idea except that Peng Daoren was going to form 49 original powers at one go. Under Lu Ping's control, Mo Li had pierced Taoist Peng's true self puppet for the 4th time. Although the true self puppet had a strong body, it was still on the verge of collapse under Lu Ping's relentless attacks. This time, Mo Li's strike had even cut off 3 of the puppet's fingers. Long Huai Ancestor had also broken the 3 original powers of Jiao Doran's puppet, but it was unknown whether Long Huai Ancestor had inherited all 3 original powers. On the other side, the battle was even fiercer. Xiang Laozu had transformed into his true spirit form and was fighting head-on against Taoist Gei's puppet, causing the surrounding space to constantly fold. Finish off your opponents as soon as possible. Once he finishes pouring all 7 original powers into his body, we will have no way to survive. At this time, Long Huai Ancestor no longer cared whether he could inherit 1 or 2 original powers from Jiao Doran's puppet. He only cared about sweeping the 9 spiritual tree branches in his hand, making a series of rustling sounds. When Lu Ping glanced over, he found that 2 more sprouts had grown on the 2 branches of the spiritual tree. If they grew up, it would probably be another 2 original powers. Lu Ping thought to himself. When Peng Daoren opened the sky, he was already in the 7th level of the true spirit realm. Now that his spirit and body have been separated, his strength has been greatly reduced, and he has to rebuild his body. But even if he completely poured all the 7 rivers of primordial qi into his body, he would at most recover his cultivation when he opened the sky. However, Taoist Ping had schemed for over 30,000 years, using the calamity of Mo Luo to repeatedly cause catastrophes in this world, causing countless beings to die in these catastrophes. Could it be that it was only to free his true spirit from the shackles of this world's source and reconstruct his body, restoring his original cultivation of the 7th true spirit realm? As this thought flashed through Lu Ping's mind, the sword technique in his hand became even sharper. Flying Sword Mo Li, which had already surpassed the pure yang spiritual treasure, had accumulated a large amount of pure energy because of Lu Ping's previous control. As a result, the quality of the flying sword did not reach the same level as the 1,000-pound rod and the blood-transforming needle. But because of this, Flying Sword Mo Li was not like the other 2 because its quality and power exceeded the limit, causing the spiritual treasure to be unable to be completely controlled. As a result, Lu Ping might not be like wise old ape or butterfly fairy who could instantly explode with powerful spells, but in terms of casting spells and endurance, he was far above the other 2. Previously, Lu Ping had used his sword technique to draw a giant lotus flower sword formation in the air with the help of the white jade lotus. Then he chased Peng Daoren's real body puppet. One reason was to drive it into the sword formation, and the other was to prepare the sword formation more fully. In Lu Ping's hands, the 9th-grade white jade lotus flower was no longer just the natal origin hour array diagram. Lu Ping could also combine his swordsmanship and skills to form several huge sword arrays, all of which required the white feather lotus flower array diagram to stabilize them. Originally, for the sake of safety, Lu Ping might need more time to prepare, but at this time, in order to buy time, he had to launch the formation in advance. The huge sword formation suddenly shrank like a blooming huge lotus suddenly closing its flower, wrapping Lu Ping and Peng Daoren's real body puppet in it at the same time. The difference was that after the sword lotus closed, the real body puppet was strangled in all directions, but because of Lu Ping's presence, the operation, response, and power of the sword formation were greatly improved. How dare you! Even Peng Daoren, who had entered the final stage of body sculpting and could not separate himself to deal with everyone, could not help but be furious when he saw the scene in front of him. After all, this puppet was Peng Daoren's real body, and it was destroyed in Lu Ping's hands just like that. It would be strange if he did not feel angry. But at this time, the most Peng Daoren could do was to roar with resentment. Lu Ping turned a deaf ear to it, and just focused on controlling the huge sword formation to grind Peng Daoren's real body puppet into pieces. In the end, he put all the ashes into a storage bag so that Peng Daoren could gather the ashes and use them to reconstruct his body. When Lu Ping converged the sword light that filled the sky, he saw the spirit tree in Long Huai ancestor's hand throw out dozens of tiny branches into the real body puppet of Jiao Daoren, which was suppressed. Then, Long Huai ancestor made a few gestures and shouted, "Explode!" Lu Ping looked up and saw dozens of sprouts on Jiao Daoren's real body puppet. At the same time, there were dozens of green pure wood chi lingering. These sprouts exploded in the wind, and their roots penetrated into the puppet's real body. While growing along the blood vessels, they also absorbed a large amount of essence from the puppet's real body, causing Jiao Daoren's real body puppet to become distorted and grotesque. Several kinds of essence air currents rose around the real body puppet, trying to suppress and expel these foreign things on its body. But these branches and vines had already penetrated into the flesh and blood of the real body. If it wanted to pull them out, it would bring up a large amount of flesh and blood. If it wanted to suppress it, it found that its essence was all absorbed by these branches and gradually began to disintegrate the real body puppet from the inside. Jiao Daoren's real body puppet was at a loss for a moment, but Long Huai ancestor wanted to end the battle quickly. He continuously cast a few spells, and the real body puppet was finally torn apart. At the same time, when Jiao Daoren's real body puppet collapsed, 6 or 7 light balls with different colors flew out of the puppet and flew in different directions of the passage formation. Lu Ping and Long Huai ancestor exclaimed almost at the same time because they could clearly see that each of these 6 or 7 light balls was wrapped in a seed of the original magic power. The two of them made a move to snatch it at the same time. Long Huai ancestor grabbed 3 magic power seeds in a row because he was close to the water pavilion. Then, Lu Ping grabbed 2 magic power seeds that flew in his direction. One of the remaining 2 was grabbed by Butterfly Fairy, who was helping Xiang Laozu, while the other one flew towards Xiao Baiyu, who had just woken up after being seriously injured. However, Long Huai ancestor and Lu Ping no longer cared about the magic power seeds that flew out. Instead, they focused on the dismembered real body of Jiao Daoren. As both of them had benefited from Jiao Daoren's real body, if 7 magic power seeds burst out from his body, it was hard to say whether there were other magic power seeds hidden in his body. Although the two of them tried to snatch Long Huai ancestor's body, they restrained each other and did not start a conflict because of this. At this moment, another deafening boom rang out. The real body puppet of Taoist Gui, which had already been pierced by Butterfly Fairy countless times with the blood-burning needles with Xiang Laozu's blood-burning needles, became increasingly fragile. Finally, under the continuous attacks of Xiang Laozu's real body, it began to collapse. Then, Xiang Laozu suddenly raised his hand and cast something in the air. Butterfly Fairy, who was standing not far away from him, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Her body flashed, and she was already hundreds of meters away from Xiang Laozu. A light blue square pot with a white base appeared in the hole above Laozu's head. The lid of the pot opened by itself, and a stream of power of 5 elements swirled out of the pot, rolling up the collapsed real body of Taoist Gui's real body into the pot one by one. Then, the lid fell back down by itself. The whole pot swayed slightly, as if someone was making a pot of good tea. Only a moment later, the pot suddenly tilted slightly, as if an invisible hand had grabbed the handle. A stream of sticky, 5-colored liquid dripped down from the spout of the pot and sank directly into Xiang Laozu's head. The Cauldron of Creation! Is this the Cauldron of Fortune? Butterfly Fairy murmured to herself, looking at the square pot floating above Xiang Laozu's head. Lu Ping and Long Huai ancestor had already divided up Jiao Daoren's real body before it turned into ashes. Seeing Laozu cast out the square pot and stored Taoist Gui's real body in it, Long Huai ancestor also exclaimed in amazement, "The Cauldron of Fortune! The Cauldron of Fortune!" This was also the first time for Lu Ping to see this Cauldron of Fortune, but as a top alchemist in this world, he had long recognized it after being influenced by the legends about this Cauldron of Fortune. Good! 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 The Cauldron of Fortune! Do you think you can do anything to me just because you've left something behind? 30,000 years ago, I was able to become the final victor in this passageway formation, and today, I can also achieve my wish. The 6 of you were no match for me when you were alive, so do you think that the descendants you left behind will be able to compete with me after you died? The colorful streams of power began to pour into Ping Doran's body, which was condensed from the starry sky power of living beings. As the seeds of power were successfully condensed in Ping Doran's body, Ping Doran's new body grew stronger and stronger. Seeing that his enemies, who had been transformed into puppets by Ping Doran, had actually left something behind to deal with him, Ping Doran couldn't help but laugh in anger. Chapter 1571. At this moment, Ping Doran was like a spectator, watching his opponents break through the obstacles he had set up one after another. He also watched those who had lost to him in the past not rest in peace even after death. They just had to leave a backup plan, using every possible way to make the latecomers continue to go against him. There was no longer the infuriating feeling of watching one opponent after another play tricks on him, while he remained indifferent. However, Taoist Ping just happened to be like this at this moment. The ants before him were clearly pitifully weak, but Taoist Ping had no choice but to let them continue. I'll let you, ants, be proud for a while. When my body is completed, my divine power will be attached to me, and I'll communicate with the innate origin, then I'll turn this world back into chaos with a flip of my hand. So what? Lu Ping, who had divided up Jiao Doran's true spirit body, and Long Huai ancestor had tacitly separated. Xiang Laozu, Butterfly Fairy and Ping Doran each occupied one side. They surrounded Ping Doran, who was pouring divine power into his reconstructed body, from a distance. With a thought, Lu Ping turned slightly and stretched out his hand. A ball of light flashing with pure yuan qi fell into his hand. It was a divine power seed. When Lu Ping looked up, he saw Xiao Baiyu barely raising his head and nodding slightly at him. In the process of raising his head, Lu Ping had already seen that his head and body had presented an extremely exaggerated angle. It could be seen what kind of price Xiao Baiyu had paid for this action. Lu Ping's heart sank. Xiao Baiyu's injury was obviously more serious than he had imagined. With the damage to his body, at least in this world, he could no longer recover, unless he gave up this body and possessed it with his true spirit. But in this case, it would probably be difficult for him to make any progress in the future. Of course, if they charged out of the restraints of this world, perhaps there were treasures of heaven and earth in the boundless starry sky that could bring the dead back to life. Or perhaps there were great powers and divine abilities that could bring the dead back to life. However, even this kind of assumption had to be established on the basis that they defeated Taoist Ping before them. The moment the divine power seed fell into Lu Ping's hand, it then flowed along with the true essence in his bloodline. This divine power seed had already been refined before it entered the core space, and then it was swallowed and transformed by the true spirit of the true spirit. Finally, it became the third earth attribute divine power of the true spirit. At the same time, Lu Ping's body also changed. After refining the essence of Jiao Doran's arm, Lu Ping's body had become much stronger. This time, the part of Jiao Doran's true body that he had snatched this time quickly released a ball of rich bloodline essence. This essence was not like the divine power seed, which could directly enhance a cultivator's cultivation base and divine power. Instead, it directly acted on Lu Ping's body, making it stronger again. It was the same for him, and it was probably the same for Patriarch Long Huai. When Lu Ping raised his head and looked at the Long Huai ancestor, he happened to meet the gaze of the Long Huai ancestor. The two of them smiled tacitly, but their eyes were flickering with inexplicable colors. Just as Lu Ping was about to look away, he saw the beautiful eyes of the butterfly fairy on the other side. She then flicked the divine power seed that was wrapped in pure yuan qi in her hand, and it flew towards the hand of the Long Huai ancestor with a stream of light in the air. A look of surprise flashed across the face of the Long Huai ancestor, but it was immediately replaced by a look of joy. He shook the spirit tree in his hand, and the divine power seed immediately fell on a branch and turned into a small sprout. Lu Ping took a glance and saw that there were more than 30 leaves on the spirit tree. There were 2 young leaves, one big and one small, but they were much smaller than the 30 leaves, and 2 new sprouts. The 4 young leaves and sprouts that were not yet fully grown were of different sizes. It meant that after the Longhui ancestor obtained the legacy of the 4 original divine powers of the Longhui ancestor, it was not like Lu Ping who could directly turn it into his own. Instead, it had to slowly go through the process of condensation, gestation, and growth. Even so, this process was many times faster than the Longhui ancestor's own cultivation. Lu Ping's eyes sparkled. He did not know why he could directly turn Jiao Doran's original divine power into his own, but the Longhui ancestor was a lot slower. However, his attention was immediately attracted by Xiang Laozu's loud shout. He is relying on the 7 origin rivers to condense his original divine power. We can't let him recover his 7 original divine powers to the perfection realm. Once Ping Daoran recovers his 7 true spirit realm strength, we will definitely die without a burial. As the 7 different colored origin rivers slowly poured into Ping Doran's reconstructed body, Ping Doran's aura grew stronger, and the 7 origin rivers became dimmer. The butterfly fairy was the first to launch an attack. This time, the layer of blood-red light on the surface of the blood transformation needle disappeared for some reason, leaving only a silver ray of light in the air. The needle headed directly for the core space where Taoist Peng's body was being reconstructed. However, when the heaven-splitting divine weapon was several dozen meters away from Ping Daoran, it was stopped by an invisible force, causing the needle to slow down. The butterfly fairy's expression did not change, as if she had already expected this. With a flick of her jade-like fingers, the blood transformation needle suddenly shook, and a thick mist of blood exploded from the body of the spiritual treasure. The blood transformation needle, which was originally imprisoned in midair, seemed to have broken free from the restraints of the 5 elements, and suddenly rushed forward dozens of feet. The sudden eruption of the blood transformation needle clearly caused Ping Daoran to be slightly surprised, but it was only a slight surprise. Ping Daoran only waved his hand and the blood transformation needle that had shot forward several dozen meters became powerless once again, floating in the air. Even a trace of seriousness flashed across the butterfly fairy's face. The blood transformation needle was the best at breaking through various defensive divine powers, but she never thought that even if she played some tricks, it would be so futile in the face of absolute strength. However, what made her even more uneasy was that not only was the blood-dissolving needle blocked, but the restraining force had also begun to imprison the heaven-splitting artifact. Butterfly Fairy might not be able to retrieve the heaven-splitting artifact even if she wanted to. However, although the Butterfly Fairy looked serious, she did not panic, because the moment she made her move, Xiang Laozu, who was in another direction, made his move almost at the same time. Xiang Laozu was using the Furnace of Fortunes, a heaven-splitting divine weapon that could even easily refine Taoist Gui's real body. Chapter 1572. The Good Fortune Divine Furnace, also known as the Good Fortune Cauldron, actually looked very much like a kettle. After the 7th ancestor created the world and imparted the Tao, this first alchemy cauldron had never appeared in the cultivation world again. Therefore, there had always been a rumor in the cultivation world that this divine artifact had left this world with Taoist Gui. However, no one had expected that the Ba Gui clan had secretly guarded this divine artifact for tens of thousands of years without anyone knowing. However, when this heaven-opening artifact reappeared in the cultivation world after tens of thousands of years, the first thing it did was to refine the original owner's body into a cluster of 5-colored origin and inject it into Xiang Laozu's body. At this time, Xiang Laozu's figure became more and more burly, and the aura around him became more and more condensed. From a distance, he looked like a majestic mountain peak. The Good Fortune Cauldron was brought up again, and in an instant, the lid of the cauldron was lifted outwards. A magical force overflowed from the cauldron, and then through the void, the spiritual qi that bound the blood transformation needle suddenly leaked out and was drawn into the Good Fortune Cauldron by this force. Butterfly Fairy took this opportunity to regain control of the blood transformation needle, but she did not attack Ping Daoren again. Instead, she shook her hand and withdrew the needle. At the same time, Longhua Ancestor also brought up a giant cauldron, and the same 7-colored brilliance swept across the air. The starry sky essence chi that had gathered around Ping Daoren's body seemed to have been swept away, and at the same time, the 7 kinds of spiritual chi that had been clearly sorted out scattered and merged into one again, causing Ping Daoren to feel both shocked and angry. "I can't believe this thing is in your hands," Ping Daoren said coldly, with obvious sarcasm in his words. Lu Ping looked at the familiar thing in front of him, and his expression changed slightly. At this time, there were 4 apes jumping up and down on the carvings on the cauldron. When they saw Lu Ping from a distance, they bared their teeth and their faces were full of hatred and hostility. If this was not the heaven-opening artifact, the wine cauldron of heaven and earth, which Lu Ping had killed the water ape, then what was it? As the treasure of Wishing School, the wine cauldron of heaven and earth should have been in the hands of Guangyu and Laozu, but now it was in the hands of Longhua Ancestor. When the formation shield was broken, the 7th Patriarch's body puppet attacked and everyone fell into chaos. Guangyu and Laozu, who was seriously injured, should have died at that time, and the cauldron of Longhua. The cauldron of cauldrons should have fallen. The cauldron of good fortune was the #1 pill furnace in the world. It could absorb the starry sky origin chi to refine it. This wine cauldron was the best at controlling starry sky origin chi. Xiang Laozu had used the cauldron of good fortune to absorb all the starry sky origin chi binding the blood-changing god needle, but Ping Daoren had condensed a large amount of starry sky origin chi. The 7 great source attributes were poured into his body, which was used to condense the 7 great source abilities. A total of 49 source abilities were enough to restore Ping Daoren's strength to the 7th true spirit realm in one fell swoop. With Xiang Laozu's strength, the source energy absorbed by the cauldron of good fortune was just a drop in the ocean. Moreover, it could only absorb the 5 elemental sources, so it didn't have much effect on Ping Daoren's recovery. Longhua Ancestor first blew away a part of the starry sky origin chi that Ping Daoren had gathered and then messed up a part of it. This was much easier and more effective than Xiang Laozu directly absorbing the source energy. Just looking at the furious expression on Ping Daoren's face after Longhua Ancestor made his move, it could be seen. However, after old Ancestor Xian used the cauldron of creation to seize Taoist Peng's origin chi, he was able to directly use the heaven-splitting artifact for his own use. Even though it was fleeting, it was still a process of one's loss and the other's gain. In comparison, old Ancestor Longhuai's ability was inferior. Right now, the two of them were trying their best to stop Ping Daoren from pouring the source energy into his body. Because once Ping Daoren recovered to the 7th true spirit realm, they would not be able to fight back against Ping Daoren. However, although Ping Daoren was in a rush to recover his cultivation and could not make a powerful counterattack, he could still gather and sort out the source energy that Longhua Ancestor had scattered and messed up. Like this, Xiang Laozu used all his strength to steal, Longhua Ancestor used all his strength to disturb, and Ping Daoren used all his strength to recover and absorb the source energy into his body to reconstruct the source energy. Like this, they could barely form a stalemate, but Ping Daoren could still use the accumulated energy to reconstruct the source energy. Lu Daoyu, quickly stop him. We can't let this person cultivate all 7 realms at the same time. Lu Ping naturally knew the consequences of Ping Daoren successfully cultivating all 7 realms at the same time. This was because not only Ping Daoren, Lu Ping, Longhua Ancestor, Xiang Laozu, Butterfly Fairy, and the others were also restricted by this world and had no choice but to take this path. The only difference was that after they reached the peak of the 1st true spirit realm, it was a matter of how many source energy they could open. However, compared to the other 3, Lu Ping had opened 7 sources because of the Samling 5-element leaf, so he could also cultivate all 7 realms at the same time. Longhua Ancestor and the others could also open several sources because of their ancestors' legacy, but it was impossible for them to cultivate all 7 realms at the same time like Lu Ping. At least Lu Ping could see from Longhuai ancestor's life source spirit treasure that he had only opened 6 sources at most. As for Xiang Laozu and the butterfly fairy, although Lu Ping did not know the details of them, he did not think that they would have opened more sources than Longhuai ancestor. If he walked a gradual path, he would encounter a huge bottleneck when he reached the 8th true spirit realm from the peak of the 7th realm. If he cultivated several sources at the same time, it would greatly reduce the difficulty of reaching the 8th true spirit realm, but he would have to stay in the 1st true spirit realm before he reached the peak of the 7th realm. Both methods had their advantages and disadvantages. However, Ping Daoren had already reached the 7th true spirit realm when he split open the sky. Although he had been imprisoned for 30,000 years, how could 30,000 years of planning be just to recover his original strength? Lu Ping had a serious expression and a rainbow-colored feather fan had appeared in his hand at some point. The feather fan grew in Lu Ping's hand, reaching 7 feet and 7 inches. This divine artifact seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds in Lu Ping's hand as it slowly fanned down. This feather fan looked slow and powerless, but the moment Lu Ping fanned it, it created a hurricane in the void, as if it wanted to shatter the space around it. Wherever the power of the 7 feather fan reached, the starry sky essence chi condensed by Ping Daoren turned into a chaotic flow. The starry sky essence chi that had just condensed once again became chaotic. Compared to the giant fan that the true spirit cultivator had summoned outside the 9 profound tower, the range of Lu Ping's spiritual ability was not wide, but its power had increased by many times. With the combined efforts of Xiang Laozu and Longhuai ancestor, the 3 of them finally shook the process of Longhuai ancestor's spiritual ability. The 7 different attributed essence chi rivers were stirred up before they could flow into his body. A large amount of pure essence chi broke free from Ping Daoren's control and dissipated into the void. The amount of origin chi Ping Daoren controlled became less and less, finally affecting the condensation of the 7 spiritual abilities. Chapter 1573. Damn it! Although Ping Daoren had gathered more than enough starry sky essence chi to condense the 49 spirit techniques needed for the 7 realms cultivation, it could not withstand the attacks of Xiang Laozu, Longhuai ancestor, and Lu Ping. At this time, most of Ping Daoren's energy was focused on condensing the new spirit techniques for his corporeal body. As such, he could not fully block the harassment from Lu Ping and the others. However, this did not mean that he did not have the power to fight back. A black mist mixed with a fierce and sinister aura gushed out from behind Ping Daoren, and then stretched out its tentacles towards Lu Ping and the others like an octopus. It was the life-spirit baleful aura that Ping Daoren had used to condense the starry sky essence chi into his corporeal body. This kind of heaven and earth baleful aura condensed from the death of a world's living beings could easily invade a cultivator's mind, pollute a cultivator's true essence, and corrupt a cultivator's corporeal body and spiritual treasures. It was the most insidious and difficult to deal with. According to legend, at the beginning of the world, the heaven and earth baleful aura was extremely turbid, and the path of cultivation was extremely difficult. The 7th patriarch used his great power to eliminate and dissolve these heaven and earth baleful aura. However, the birth and death of the heaven and earth baleful aura was a supreme principle. Although the 7th patriarch could resolve it with his great spiritual power, he could not resolve it for a lifetime. Therefore, the 7th patriarch set up the origin net in the north ice field. In addition to using it to protect this world, the other purpose was to resolve the baleful aura after the death of the world's living beings, allowing the world to become clear and bright, allowing the wind of cultivation to flourish. According to legend, after this baleful aura was completely filtered by the origin net, it would completely vanish. Who would have thought that Taoist Ping would actually be using it in secret? Now, he was even using it to reconstruct his body. It could be imagined that once Ping Daoren condensed his divine power and recovered his cultivation base, coupled with the body that he had been planning for tens of thousands of years by using the evil spirits of this world collected by Mara's calamity, his strength would grow to an unimaginable level. Xiang Laozu didn't even think about it. He threw a beam of spiritual light toward the spiritual aura that was rushing toward him. The spiritual light expanded into a 1,000-pound staff in the air. It was the spiritual treasure left behind by Wise Ape after his death. Afterward, he didn't know what kind of exchange he had made with Longhui ancestor and Lu Ping, but this acquired spiritual treasure, which was not inferior to a heaven-splitting divine artifact, had fallen into his hands. Although this baleful aura was known as the world's most baleful aura, it also depended on whether it was sufficient. After all, the 1,000-pound staff was Taoist Ape's favorite weapon in the past and was a proper acquired spiritual treasure. Before the baleful aura could corrode the 1,000-pound staff, it had already been smashed into nothingness by this divine weapon. Xiang Laozi used two acquired spiritual treasures that were similar to heaven-splitting divine artifacts at the same time. Even though he had summoned the tyrannical turtle's real spirit body, his face was flushed. It was obvious that the burden was not light. Longhui ancestor turned the natal spiritual treasure in his hand into a towering tree. Similarly, a pitch-black barrier was formed along with the towering tree. The moment the baleful aura that was rushing toward him came into contact with it, the two sides began to fight for it. The barrier that Longhui ancestor put up was not as strange as the baleful aura, but it was better than the baleful aura in that it could continuously support this barrier with the source of its divine power. The firmament of myriad poisons. Taoist Ping glanced at ancestor Longhui, and then he glanced at ancestor Xiang who was at the other side. He was unable to restrain the ridicule in his heart any longer, and he let out a string of strange laughter that caused everyone to be flustered in their hearts. If that tortoise hadn't turned on me back then, I would have had to spend a lot more effort to deal with the four-legged serpent. In fact, it wouldn't have been easy for me to protect my true spirit. I never imagined that the descendant of the four-legged serpent would use the same method as that tortoise. How laughable! Humph! Humph! Two cold snorts rang out at the same time. Xiang Laozu and Longhui ancestor looked straight ahead, as if they had turned a deaf ear to Ping Doran's provocative eyes. They only focused on restraining the two baleful auras, then attacked Ping Doran even more fiercely. For a moment, the source of baleful aura became even more chaotic, and Ping Doran found it even more difficult to recondense his divine power. What do the grudges of our ancestors have to do with us? We only want to live. If Peng Laozu could open the passage to this world and let us seek the path of immortality, why would we have to risk our lives? But now, our lives are hanging by a thread. Even if the cultivator with the Jiao bloodline uses Taoist Gei's divine power, and the cultivator with the Ping bloodline practices Jiao Doran's heaven-splitting swordsmanship, it's only for the sake of survival. The blood transformation divine needle was evil to begin with. As Butterfly Fairy spoke with confidence and composure, she treated the living baleful aura as if it were nothing. She controlled the blood transformation divine needle to pass through it, taking advantage of Taoist Peng's flustered state to launch another sneak attack. This time, it was aimed at Taoist Peng's eyes. Peng Doran snorted coldly and said, "Childish!" Naturally, he did not take the Butterfly Fairy's method seriously. Although his body could not move because he was condensing his divine power, he suddenly blew out a puff of pure vital essence. This vital essence circled in front of him and turned into a golden pink bird. With the spread of its wings, it streaked across the void like an arrow released from a bow. Then, the pink bird stretched out its neck and pecked at the blood-dissipating needles. Unexpectedly, this time, the Butterfly Fairy had learned her lesson from last time. Her needle was just a feint. A cloud of blood mist exploded, and the pink bird pecked empty air. The blood-dissipating needles had already appeared in the void above Ping Doran's head, which had been combed into a distinct river of origin. Like an embroidery needle picking up the colorful threads on a piece of embroidery, the blood-melting divine needle kept appearing and disappearing, once again picking up the original energy that Taoist Ping had managed to clear with great difficulty, and turning it into a mess. Peng Doran roared again and again, but there was nothing he could do at the moment. He could only try his best to absorb the remaining primordial qi into his body, and try his best to condense another divine power so that he could recover some of his cultivation base and strength. At this moment, Peng Daoren made a sound of surprise. When he turned to look, it turned out that there was a purple gold shield in front of Lu Ping. No matter how the life aura killing needles raged, it could not do anything to the shield. Although Xiang Laozu and the Longhuai ancestor had blocked the life aura killing needles, they had relied on a large amount of their true essence to do so. As for the butterfly fairy, although her blood dissipating needles did not fear the corrosion of the life aura killing needles, she had extraordinary attainments in spatial divine power. When she flew, she was like a butterfly flitting through flowers, and the life aura killing needles could not lock her down in a short period of time. Yet Lu Ping was able to calmly block the most ferocious thing in this world with just an ordinary divine power. How could this not amaze Peng Daoren? If there is anything in this world that can compete with the life aura killing needles, it has to be the 10,000 poison source liquid. Peng Daoren sighed and said, I never thought that the essence of the poison pill that bastard used to plot against the four-legged snake would fall into your hands. I was originally amazed at how a human cultivator like you could reach where you are today. I thought that you should be a trump card that the four-legged snake left behind, right? But I never thought that the four-legged snake would have the courage to leave a trump card on a human cultivator. The name of the 10,000 poison source liquid had become famous in the cultivation world because of a case at the beginning of the world. Not to mention the Longhuai ancestor and Xiang Laozu, even the butterfly fairy couldn't help looking deeply at Lu Ping in surprise. Ever since they entered the passage array, Lu Ping's strength had been revealed step by step. He was also in the peak of the first true spirit realm. Although he had surprised the Longhuai ancestor and the others time and again, the Longhuai ancestor and the others had always looked down on Lu Ping. This had nothing to do with Lu Ping's shallow cultivation time, but because of his bloodline inheritance. The human bloodline was the most heterogeneous. At the beginning of cultivation, other than the 7 main attributes, there were 7 different bloodlines. This created 49 possible cultivation paths, but a person's potential was limited. The more possible choices there were, the thinner a person's potential would be. As a result, it was very difficult for a human cultivator to purify their main bloodline. Not to mention compared to the monster race, especially the high-grade monster race with the bloodline of the 7th patriarch, humans didn't have any inherited memories, so they didn't have much of the 7th patriarch's inheritance. Although cultivators cultivated fast, compared to the monster race, cultivators of the same level were generally weaker. They could only rely on numbers to make up for the balance between the two races. This was also why Peng Daoren believed that even if the other Laozu had a trump card, they wouldn't choose a human cultivator. Now that Peng Daoren had confirmed that Lu Ping was the same as the Longhuai ancestor and Xiang Laozu, the same person the 7th patriarch had chosen after 10,000 years of planning, everyone suddenly realized that they had underestimated this famous human cultivator in the cultivation world. Chapter 1574. Doesn't Laozu also have the Yuan family that has harmed the cultivation world for tens of thousands of years without anyone knowing? Lu Ping's response was neither servile nor overbearing. At a time like this, he couldn't back down. Otherwise, it would only make others think that he was a coward. Not to mention, in this life and death situation, he might even be abandoned by his allies at any time. At the very least, they had the heaven-opening divine weapons that originally belonged to someone else. Who could confidently say that there wasn't anything fishy about them? Since Lu Daoyu has a way to block the life aura fiend, I ask fellow cultivator to lend us a hand and let us stop this person from absorbing the source essence. Xiang Laozu used 2 heaven-opening divine weapons to deal with Peng Daoren at the same time, which consumed a lot of energy. Seeing that Lu Ping had used the 10,000 poison source liquid to protect himself, he could only suppress the envy and strange thoughts in his heart as he quickly begged Lu Ping. Lu Ping also understood that with 7 realms at the same time, even if he condensed 8 source abilities for each attribute, Peng Daoren's cultivation would still be in the first true spirit realm. But even if they destroyed the 5 source essences Peng Daoren had condensed 2 of his source abilities to perfection. Perhaps this was an unbearable failure for Peng Daoren, but for Lu Ping and the others, facing an opponent in the second true spirit realm was also a disaster. At this time, Lu Ping had the best method to restrain Ping Doran's life or a fiend. It was indeed the best time to cover the other three's attacks. Lu Ping naturally could not shirk this responsibility at this time, but after Xiang Laozu finished speaking, he noticed something from the expectant gazes of the Longhui ancestor and the butterfly fairy. "That's fine, everyone can be assured." Lu Ping's heart slightly moved, but he revealed an indifferent smile on his face as he spoke. How could he not know that although Xiang Laozu's words were true, the three of them were planning to obtain the 10,000 poison source liquid from him? Lu Ping had been cultivating, and it was unknown how many benefits he had obtained from the 10,000 poison source liquid. No one knew the value of the 10,000 poison source liquid better than Lu Ping. Once Lu Ping lent a portion of the 10,000 poison source liquid to the three of them, they naturally would not be polite. There was a high chance they would not return it, and even if they returned it, they would consume a lot of it. However, Lu Ping did not care at all. He threw out both his hands, and dozens of rays of light fell 10 meters away from him. There were dozens of different kinds of formation tools, and each of them was forged with high-quality spiritual materials. If it was in the hands of any formation master, a single formation tool could be used as the core formation plate of a formation. However, these dozens of formation tools in front of him were just the scraps of a formation. Just when the other three were confused, a 9th-grade white jade lotus flower unknowingly materialized under Lu Ping's feet and slowly bloomed. It was the lotus formation diagram of Lu Ping's natal gentian formation. In the instant that the formation diagram opened, the densely packed runes on the petals swam like tadpoles, and the formation lines changed accordingly. In an instant, a formation plate that was quite similar to the natal gentian formation diagram was formed. It resonated with the dozens of formation tools, and a small-scale formation was formed in Lu Ping's hands. The natal gentian formation originated from the soaring dragon galaxy technique. Similar to the 9 foundation formations that Lu Ping had obtained from Dark Sky Island, they were all the inheritances left behind by Jiao Daoren. The two had something in common. Although Lu Ping did not specialize in formations, there were 2 formation masters in the Jinling sect, and they had studied Jiao Daoren's formation inheritance very deeply. Taoist Jiao's 9 foundation formations had countless variations, and Deng Tianming was a formation genius that only appeared once in 1,000 years. Even after hundreds of years, he had only mastered 3 foundation formations. Heavenly Fox, on the other hand, paled in comparison. However, he had also mastered 2 foundational formations. However, he had only managed to comprehend one of them with Deng Tianming's help. Even so, Heavenly Fox could be considered one of the few formation masters in the world of cultivation. It was also because of these two that before Lu Ping left, the Jinling sect had already replaced Dark Sky Island as the formation master in the cultivation world. This simple and fast method of setting up a formation was the method that Lu Ping had asked Deng Tianming and Sky Fox to prepare for him to break through the passageway formation. In order to break through the passageway formation, Lu Ping had prepared for 500 years. He did not just spend those 500 years on cultivation. He had also done his best to predict and prepare for all kinds of unexpected situations. The moment the formation took shape, Lu Ping extended his left index finger and tapped the lotus formation beneath his feet. A drop of purplish gold liquid the size of a grape condensed on his fingertip, which then dripped onto the stamen in the middle of the formation. A purplish gold layer of light then spread along the lotus formation to the surrounding formation tools. The light slowly rose and first enveloped Lu Ping's entire body. Next, Lu Ping blew at the light screen in front of him. The purplish gold light screen suddenly bulged outwards, and a purplish gold bubble gradually formed. It then separated from the light screen that enveloped Lu Ping and flew towards Xiang Laozu, who was the furthest away from Lu Ping. Xiang Laozu frowned slightly when he saw the bubble flying towards him. However, he did not dodge in the end. The bubble swallowed Xiang Laozu the instant it hit him. Coincidentally, The baleful life form that had been entangled with the 15-ton staff had circled around it. Taking advantage of Xiang Laozu's moment of hesitation, it crashed into the purplish gold bubble. With a crisp pop, the purplish gold bubble violently trembled, but in the end, it still blocked the baleful life form outside the bubble. Xiang Laozu's expression relaxed, but there was also a trace of regret mixed in. However, he still stretched out his hand and swiped at the top of his head. The cauldron of creation that was floating above him shifted, and the mouth of the cauldron aimed in Lu Ping's direction. As the body of the cauldron tilted, a 5-colored stream of light fell into the void. Xiang Laozu said in a loud voice, "Thank you, Lu Daoyu." Lu Ping nodded slightly, taking Xiang Laozu's words of thanks with equanimity. Afterwards, he saw the void in front of him tremble, and a 5-colored stream of light suddenly appeared in front of him. Lu Ping did not dodge, and allowed the 5-colored light to pour over him. Soon after, it disappeared into his skin. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows slightly, and a sliver of surprise appeared on his face. This 5-colored energy was twice as much as the benefits that Xiang Laozu had promised him for the Longhuai ancestor in order to obtain the 15-ton staff. However, Lu Ping immediately realized that this should be Xiang Laozu's way of thanking him for blocking the baleful life form. As a result, he no longer acted pretentiously. He blew out 3 more mouthfuls of energy, and 3 purplish gold bubbles left the light screen one after another. They flew towards the Longhuai ancestor and the butterfly fairy, who were currently entangled with the baleful life form. As for the remaining one, Lu Ping protected the heavily injured and dying Xiao Baiyu, who was far away from the battle. Lu Ping didn't directly lend the myriad poison source potion to the 3 of them. Instead, he first laid out the potion in the form of an array formation. This time, he was going to borrow the array formation created by Jinling Sect's other array formation Grandmaster, Enlightened Master Xianchen. With the array formation would be used on Ancestor Xiang and the others. This way, Lu Ping would be in control of the array formation and the others wouldn't be able to steal the potion from the array formation. With the assistance of Lu Ping's ability, Xiang Laozu and the others no longer had anything to worry about. As they unleashed their abilities, Ping Doran's control over the remaining source liquids became weaker and weaker. His sorting through the source liquids of the 7 elements gradually could not keep up with their destruction. However, the closer it was to this possibility, Xiang Laozu and the others became even more cautious, even to the point of being nervous. This was because once Ping Doran gave up his tens of thousands of years of planning and gave up on cultivating the 7 realms, it would be hard for them to interfere. Once Ping Doran raised his cultivation to the 2nd or 3rd true spirit realm, it would be hard for them to escape. However, facing this possibility, the Longhuai ancestor and Lu Ping were very calm. Although Lu Ping did not know why the Longhuai ancestor was this calm, Lu Ping himself was not panicked. This was because he believed that Ping Doran would not give up on his tens of thousands of years of planning. Lu Ping had always believed that Ping Doran's plans from opening the heavens to now was not just to recover his original cultivation. This was because from the soaring dragon galaxy's secret art Lu Ping had obtained, in the boundless starry sky, above the 7 realms, there were 8 realms, and it was even impossible to have 9 realms. Ping Doran was already a cultivator in the 7th true spirit realm when the heavens were opened and the divine weapon he held was condensed from the thunder source. In other words, he already had the cultivation to attack the 8th true spirit realm's thunder source when the heavens were opened. With Ping Doran's pride, how could he place a small 7-realm cultivator in his eyes? At this time, the Longhuai ancestor suddenly said in a deep voice, "Everyone, don't worry. Ping Doran has condensed his body with the life aura fiend, so if he doesn't cultivate all 7 realms to perfection in one go, cultivators under the 7th true spirit realm will not be able to resist the backlash from the life aura fiend." So it was like this. Lu Ping suddenly understood. This time, even if Ping Doran wanted to abandon the rook to protect the general, he couldn't do it. "But what can you do?" As soon as the Longhuai ancestor finished speaking, Ping Doran's gloomy voice rang out and everyone's hearts sank. Chapter 1575. Lu Ping knew where Longhua ancestors' confidence came from. Unlike normal cultivators who cultivated the 7 realms at the same time, Ping Daoren had reconstructed his corporeal body, so he cultivated the 7 realms at the same time. That is to say, he cultivated the 7 elemental origins at the same time and reconstructed his origin spirit technique at the same time. Usually, if a cultivator wanted to cultivate more than one elemental energy at the same time, they would first have to reach the peak of the first level of the true spirit realm before they could activate the other elemental energies. In other words, although Lu Ping had activated all 7 elemental energies at the same time, he had already cultivated the water elemental energy to the peak of the first level of the true spirit realm. Thus, he was actually cultivating all 6 elemental energies at the same time. The reason why Taoist Ping was able to abandon his life source energy and walk the path of simultaneously cultivating all 7 realms was firstly to buy time, and secondly because he had sufficient confidence in his control over his body after starting anew. However, Ping Daoren never thought that Longhua ancestor and the others would appear in this world. Or rather, even if he thought that the other heaven-opening Laozi might have left behind some tricks, it was impossible for 4 true spirit realm cultivators to appear at the same time. It was even more impossible for 18 true spirit cultivators to gather together at the same time, causing the layers of obstacles he laid down to be broken one after another. Even now, when he tried to reconstruct his corporeal body, he still suffered an unprecedented obstruction. The starry sky essence chi he gathered was constantly plundered by the good fortune cauldron, disturbed by the 1,000-ton stick, disturbed by the heaven and earth wine cauldron, stirred by the blood-transforming god needle, and then blown away by the 7-feather fan. The starry sky essence chi he could control was constantly being lost. Even if he wanted to cultivate the 7 realms to perfection in one fell swoop, it would be difficult for him to do so. A few abominable juniors, daring to ruin this senior's plans. If this senior's corporeal body was not condensed from life essence chi, then even if this senior's 10,000 years of planning was destroyed, he would first cultivate 2 or 3 origins to perfection, and then kill them one by one. You juniors only want to stop me from cultivating all 7 realms and reaching perfection. But what can you do? I've been planning since the beginning of my plan. How can you juniors succeed just because you want to destroy it? Ping Daoren's words were filled with contempt for Longhua ancestor and the others. Amidst the increasingly dazzling 7 essential essences, a ball of golden light appeared from nothing and became more and more dazzling, until there was another Yuanqi river in the Yuanqi flow formed by the 7 essential essences. Golden light danced and lightning flashed. The moment this origin Qi river was formed, the other 7 origin Qi rivers instantly lost their luster. This was the essence of thunder. The 4 people's expressions immediately changed. Taoist Ping was unable to cultivate all 7 origins at the same time, so he directly activated the thunder origin for his body. What was he going to do? Cultivate all 8 realms at once? Although Lu Ping had expected this, he did not think that Ping Daoren would be so resolute. Although there was only one more source of thunder in the 8 realms and the 7 realms at the same time, the difficulty was many times higher. Ping Daoren was restrained by everyone when he was cultivating the 7 realms at the same time. It would be even more difficult to cultivate the 8 realms at the same time. Could he succeed? However, Lu Ping immediately understood why Ping Daoren had taken the risk to activate the lightning origin spirit art. The thunder river traversed the void, and the blood-melting needle was the first to be restrained by the lightning. The cauldron of creation and the wine cauldron of heaven and earth could interfere with the 7 realms, but they could not do anything to the lightning origin spirit art. Only the 15-ton cudgel was still trying to chase, but the thunder river twisted and turned. Wherever the lightning passed, the 15-ton cudgel was like a headless fly, unable to catch up. A bolt of lightning shot out from the thunder river, drawing a thunderbolt in the void, and hit Ping Daoren's body. Ping Daoren's body was instantly submerged by the lightning, and then the lightning did not gradually dissipate. Instead, it shrank inward and slowly penetrated into his body. Behind Ping Daoren, a dark feather on the tail feather of the Peng's true spirit suddenly shone brightly. Traces of lightning wandered like electric snakes. Impressively, Ping Daoren had already begun the condensation of the first lightning origin spirit art. The lightning origin spirit was obviously in existence that the several heaven-opening artifacts could not touch or interfere with. Even for these heaven-opening artifacts, because of the cultivation of the heaven-opening artifact Laozu, the lightning origin spirit art could even restrain their power to a great extent. However, cultivating 8 realms at the same time was not a trivial matter. At this time, Ping Daoren's control over the other 7 realms' essence spirits was no longer as strong as he wished. He even restrained the life baleful spirit art's counterattack. Lu Ping took the opportunity to remove the mother and child traction formation and withdraw the myriad meteorite vital poison gang to protect the other 3. Stop him! Xiang Laozu turned into his true spirit art, and a giant tortoise the size of a mountain slammed into the source energy river. The good fortune cauldron was still above the giant tortoise's head, swallowing the endless source energy. It was unknown if he really had a way to stop Ping Daoren from condensing the lightning origin spirit art, or if he wanted to take this chance to absorb the scattered source energy into the good fortune cauldron for his own use, or maybe it was both. Longhua Ancestor looked dignified. The treasure cauldron of heaven and earth in his hand was said to be able to mobilize all the pneuma in the world. It could be said that the treasure cauldron of heaven and earth contributed the most to the disturbance of Ping Daoren condensing the 7 great origin spirit art. But in fact, this heaven-opening artifact had no effect on the lightning origin, because among the 7 Laozu who opened up this world, none of them comprehended the lightning origin and raised their cultivation to the true spirit realm 8. However, Longhua Ancestor's next action deepened Lu Ping's fear of these people. A small crystal hammer appeared in his hand. It was the most precious treasure of the Crystal Palace, the heaven-opening artifact of Taoist Hu, which should have been in the hands of primordial Wine Laozu. Longhua Ancestor threw the crystal hammer, and the heaven-opening artifact suddenly expanded in the air, smashing straight at Ping Daoren's head. Coincidentally, another bolt of lightning from the converging golden thunder river struck at Ping Daoren's body. The crystal hammer directly hit this bolt of lightning, and countless electric snakes were thrown in all directions. But in the end, this bolt of lightning still retained half of its power and fell on Longhua Ancestor's body. This weakened lightning origin was obviously not enough to build a lightning origin spirit art. Ping Daoren's eyes were about to spit fire as he waited for the crystal hammer to bounce back into the air, but in the end, there was nothing he could do. However, although Longhua Ancestor's attack was effective, the backlash of the lightning origin soon followed. Longhua Ancestor took a deep breath, and the natal spiritual tree in his hand brushed out dozens of spiritual lights in an attempt to protect himself. But the power of the lightning origin was obviously much stronger than the 7 elemental origins. Although Longhua Ancestor tried his best to protect himself, Lu Ping could still see the trembling hands under Longhua Ancestor's sleeves and the lightning flashing on his skin. But these 2 people were far less shocking to Lu Ping than the butterfly fairy's next move. Just as Longhua Ancestor was suffering from the backlash of the lightning origin, the butterfly fairy suddenly raised a pitch-black oval shield in the air. The shield seemed to weigh thousands of pounds, and even the butterfly fairy had to use both hands to lift it above her head. Then, under Lu Ping's shocked gaze, the butterfly fairy plunged headfirst into the raging lightning source in the void. This is a tortoise shell? Countless golden lightning snakes smashed towards butterfly fairy like a waterfall, but they were blocked by the shield above her head. At the same time, the tortoise shell released a grayish-black light screen to block butterfly fairy from the attack. Chapter 1576. Ancestral Tortoise Shell. How did it end up in your hands? That tortoise's life source tortoise shell is in the hands of little Chana's successor. Ha ha, how ironic! 2 voices rang out at the same time. Lu Ping now knew that this tortoiseshell shield was actually Taoist Gei's true spirit tortoiseshell. Just like the 15-ton cudgel, it was a divine treasure that was not weaker than the 6 heavens-splitting divine weapons. The butterfly fairy coldly snorted and seemed to want to say something, but the berserk nature of the thunder source was clearly beyond her expectations. Although she was protected by the tortoiseshell, the pressure from the raging lightning caused her internal organs to be injured the moment she opened her mouth to speak. However, Lu Ping could clearly see that as the lightning raged on the tortoiseshell, countless runic patterns on the tortoiseshell's shield were activated. The runic patterns swam around the surface of the shield in an orderly manner. Many of the lightning bolts that struck the shield instantly disappeared, and many of the runic patterns that lit up flickered and formed new runic patterns. However, there were also many runic patterns that completely disintegrated under the lightning bolts, even causing cracks to appear on the surface of the tortoiseshell shield. But soon after, the new runic patterns swam over and patched up the cracks. The butterfly fairy took the risk to break into the thunder source to compete with Ping Daoren for the thunder source to improve the quality of the tortoiseshell's shield. However, the thunder source was a high-level source that only cultivators in the 8th true spirit realm were qualified to touch. Its threat was clearly far above the other 7 attributes. Ancestor Xiang used the creation cauldron to protect himself and hid in the 7 source rivers. He controlled the 15-ton cudgel and smashed it towards the source of lightning. He no longer cared about the damage that the 15-ton cudgel, an acquired spiritual treasure, would suffer from the corrosion of the source of lightning. But even then, under Taoist Ping's control, the slightest backlash from the quintessence of lightning caused Ancestor Xiang to be in a fluster, and it was even to the extent that he had no choice but to transform into the tyrannical turtle true spirit to resist it head-on. At this time, Xiang Laozu's hair was disheveled and blood seeped out of his skin, staining his messy clothes. He looked extremely embarrassed. If it were not for the good fortune cauldron constantly condensing the world's origin energy, Xiang Laozu would have died long ago. However, although the backlash of the thunder source made Xiang Laozu very afraid, Xiang Laozu still tried his best to interfere with the thunder source. Only in this way could he keep trying to absorb the scattered thunder source with the good fortune cauldron, even if it was just a little bit. If Xiang Laozu was just wandering around to harass Ping Daoren, and the butterfly fairy was only disturbing the thunder source with the help of Taoist Gei's true spirit shield, Longhui Ancestor had now become the one who directly prevented Ping Daoren from condensing the power of the thunder source. However, after the first time, when Ping Daoren was unprepared, the crystal hammer in his hand destroyed half of the thunder source and one of Ping Daoren's thunderbolts. Its resistance to the thunder source became weaker and weaker. Every time it blocked the thunderbolts, the backlash of the thunderbolts would cause great damage to Longhui Ancestor's physical body. Although Longhui Ancestor tried his best to stop the thunderbolts, the rest of the thunder source was absorbed into Ping Daoren's body by Ping Daoren. Among the tail feathers of the rock behind him, 5 were already stained with the thunderbolts. I originally wanted to condense the power of the thunder source after the 7 original powers were fully condensed. In this way, I could use the power of the original power of this world to fuse with the 8 original powers to break through to the 9th level of the true spirit realm. Then, with the innate original power of this world, I could break through to the supreme divine spirit realm and finally enjoy immortality. However, I didn't expect that you minor repairs would be able to force me into such a situation. I had no choice but to condense the power of the thunder source first. You should be proud of yourselves. However, everything ends here. You may have some methods to resist the 7 original powers, but only I had some understanding of the power of the thunder source back then. Only then did I create the number 1 divine artifact, the 7 thunder treasures calabash. Since the world was opened, the old man has used the 7 thunder treasures calabash to collect and nurture the thunder source of this world. If the acquired treasures in your hands were still there, you might have been able to resist it. But now, they are in the hands of you minor repairs. Hee, it's like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. I just need to spend another 1,000 years to break through to the chaotic realm again. As long as the innate original power of this world is still in my hands, the path to immortality will not be able to escape my hands. Ping Daoren saw that the Longhui Ancestor and the others had little effect on resisting the power of the thunder source, while his own power of lightning was not greatly affected. The success of his tens of thousands of years of planning was right in front of him. He could not help but feel happy, and his expression became much more relaxed. At this moment, Lu Ping's heart was in turmoil. The seventh patriarch had disappeared from this world when the world was opened. Now, it seemed that the two sides had clearly started a fight in the passage formation. The result of this fight was obvious. The other 6 Laozu had all died, and even their bodies were refined into puppets. As the strongest and the only survivor, Pingdaoren had no choice but to leave his body and entrust his true soul to the origin of this world. The cultivation world had long speculated that the disappearance of the seventh patriarch was due to the death of all the other Laozu. However, there were different speculations about the reason for the fight. Only Lu Ping knew that the seventh patriarch's fight was because they were fighting for an innate item from a handkerchief that Jiao Daoren left for the one Taoist. Now that he suddenly heard innate original power from Pingdaoren, Lu Ping instantly guessed that it must be the item that Jiao Daoren mentioned. Even so, when Lu Ping learned that the innate original power was the key to embark on the path to immortality, he still could not suppress the shock in his heart. The divine spirit realm, the path to immortality, was the innate original power the key? Although everyone was in danger at this moment, and there was always the danger of dying under the ravaging of the origin of thunder, Lu Ping had never felt that the path to immortality was so clearly displayed in front of him. Although it was still far away, and even somewhat unreachable, it made Lu Ping feel that it was indeed real. Did Laozu collect the origin of thunder in this world with the 7 treasures thunder calabash through the hands of the Yuan clan? Lu Ping's abrupt question was clearly out of Pingdaoren's expectations. This human cultivator's calmness made Pingdaoren feel a little uneasy. However, it was only a little, and it was immediately extinguished by the surging origin of thunder that surged into his body. The Yuan clan? You're nothing but a marionette of mine. Those few people were able to arrange a contingency plan before they died, trying to use you, minor repairs, to ruin my plan. Don't tell me that I haven't made arrangements for the whole world? While talking and laughing, Pingdaoren strengthened the counterattack with a bolt of original thunder. Longhuai ancestor gave a muffled groan, and the cosmos wine cauldron floating above his head made a loud noise, mixed with the shrill cry of an ape, and the body of a spirit ape was slowly dissipating. Xiang Laozu was still trying his best to interfere, but the effect was minimal. Meanwhile, the butterfly fairy could no longer withstand the raging thunder. More and more cracks appeared on Priest Guy's armor of true spirit, and those spell symbols that had absorbed the thunder power could no longer be repaired. While controlling the 7-feathered fan to help Laozu, Lu Ping also kept a giant cauldron floating above his head and said, "Poor Yuan clan. For tens of thousands of years, they claimed to be the most powerful family, but in the end, they were just puppets at the mercy of others. What a pity!" Taoist Ping sneered and said, "At that time, I had yet to open up the cultivation of the origin of thunder. Otherwise, I would have rewarded them with some good fortune after I succeeded in my cultivation for tens of thousands of years, making up for the deficiencies in their bloodlines. They were nothing more than objects of fortune and ant-like existences. If they died, then they died. What's there to feel pity about?" Taoist Ping sneered and said, "Back then, I had yet to open up the cultivation of the origin of thunder." Chapter 1577. Even a few losers were able to set up a contingency plan to deal with me. Could it be that I've been here for tens of thousands of years for nothing? Pingdaoren couldn't help but mock coldly when he saw that the few people in front of him were unable to fight back under the backlash of his lightning source. At this time, the human race's minor repairs suddenly opened his mouth and said, "So the lightning source of the 7 thunder treasures calabash in the hands of the Yuan clan is all here." Pingdaoren looked at Lu Ping with a trace of surprise, but he smiled and said, "Not bad. I didn't expect a human race's minor repairs to be able to think of this. The reason I left the Yuan clan behind was to use them to control the Mara clan, which I created, to appear in the cultivation world and provoke the disaster of Mara. Only then can I collect the evil chi of the dead creatures in this world and reconstruct my body. Similarly, the 7 Thunder Treasures calabash was left in the Yuan clan to collect the lightning source of this world. Unfortunately, the Yuan clan was unable to accomplish anything. If I hadn't acted in time, the lightning source that I spent tens of thousands of years to collect would have almost collapsed. Lu Ping sighed and said, "No wonder the cultivation world says that wherever there is a Yuan clan, there will be a disaster of Mara. It was originally just a joke about the Yuan clan, but it turned out to be a prophecy." Pandoran's expression suddenly changed and he asked sternly, "Boy, you should have already known about this when you destroyed the Yuan clan. Why are you still asking the old man?" A strange smile suddenly appeared on Lu Ping's face. He laughed and said, "Does Lao Tzu know who the person who almost collapsed the lightning source was?" As soon as Lu Ping finished speaking, he felt a cold gaze filled with boundless killing intent land on him. Lu Ping's expression instantly changed. In the blink of an eye, just as Lu Ping was anticipating something bad to happen, a ray of lightning suddenly separated from the source of the lightning. It turned into a bolt of lightning that tore through the void and landed right above Lu Ping's head. A deafening clap of thunder followed after the lightning bolt, but the lightning bolt had already dyed Lu Ping's face a purplish gold color. This was a lightning bolt formed from the origin lightning bolt. Although it wasn't Taoist Peng's origin technique, its power far surpassed all the origin supreme techniques Lu Ping had seen before. The source of lightning was so profound that its power was actually so explosive. It was no wonder there was a large gap between the 7th true spirit realm and the 8th true spirit realm. The power of the divine ability clearly showed this almost insurmountable gap. "Dodge!" Old Ancestor Long Huai couldn't help but shout at Lu Ping anxiously. Although they all had their own thoughts, they were facing an unprecedented enemy. Before their common enemy was eliminated, if one of them died prematurely, then their path to immortality would be left with nothing but despair. Old Ancestor Long Huai's voice rang out. Long Huai Ancestor ruthlessly pushed the heaven and earth wine cauldron above his head. He wanted to push the heaven-opening divine weapon towards the lightning source. It had to be known that although the heaven and earth wine cauldron was magical, it had little effect on the lightning source. Ape Taoist was only a cultivator in the 5th true spirit realm after all. However, this cauldron was still a heaven-opening divine weapon. At this time, Long Huai Ancestor did not care about the cauldron's damage and tried to interfere with the lightning source, but he was still able to slightly control it. It was not just Long Huai Ancestor. At this moment, Butterfly Fairy and Xiang Laozu also increased their attacks in an attempt to reduce the pressure on Lu Ping, allowing him to dodge Ping Doran's attack. However, when the origin lightning struck down, the scene that everyone had imagined did not appear. Lu Ping did not even try to dodge. It was as if he had been scared out of his wits, and he still maintained the strange smile on his face. The lightning struck Lu Ping's head, but Lu Ping's entire body was dyed purple gold. The flowing lightning exploded and covered everything. From afar, it looked like Lu Ping had disappeared in the lightning. "Sure enough, you've even mastered this thing!" While the hearts of Patriarch Long Huai and the others sank to the bottom, Taoist Pen, who was doing his best to gather the essence of lightning divine ability, had even paused the process of gathering his divine ability. Instead, he stared at the depths of the ball of lightning and said slowly with a rare hint of solemnity in his voice, "Long Huai Ancestor," and the others were stunned. Pandoran's words were clearly not directed at them. Could it be that Lu Taiping, who had been directly hit by the lightning source, was still alive? Just as everyone turned to look, they saw a figure slowly walking out of the lightning. Who else could it be but Lu Taiping? How was this possible? At this moment, Long Huai Ancestor and the others were definitely not happy, but shocked. It was a kind of hysterical disbelief that was beyond their understanding. The power contained in the thunder origin was not a lightning-attributed divine ability, nor was it a pure yang thunder tribulation. It was a power that was much more powerful than the heavenly punishment, so how could Lu Taiping treat it as nothing? The purple gold lightning was shrinking, and Lu Ping's body was gradually revealed in the lightning. Other than that, there was something hanging above Lu Ping's head, attracting everyone's attention. A foot-long purple calabash was hanging 3 feet above Lu Ping's head. At this moment, there were bolts of lightning coming out of the calabash from time to time, causing the calabash to tremble. It was like a child who had eaten too much and was constantly burping. 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash. This was the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash. Lu Taiping actually had the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash. Long Huai Ancestor, Butterfly Fairy, and Xiang Laozu almost instantly confirmed the identity of this purple calabash. Only the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash, and only the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash, could face the lightning source without fear, because the original purpose of refining the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash was to nurture the lightning source. However, wasn't the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash destroyed by Longhuai Ancestor at the foot of the Shang Mountain? Could it be that the calabash above Lu Taiping's head was refined by him? Everyone, don't let your guard down. Let this person condense a lightning attribute magic power. Originally, Ping Daoren, who had been letting the world's origin power condense into his body, condense the origin magic power, and restore his cultivation, could not move at all. He could only use the natural barrier condensed by the world's origin power, which was far beyond the divine thoughts of Lu Ping and the others, or the tyrannical power of the lightning source itself to stop the joint harassment of others. Even though Taoist Ping had forced himself to attack Lu Ping, he had still forced Taoist Ping to pause the technique he was in the middle of condensing. And if something went wrong with the technique he was in the middle of condensing would be completely useless. At the same time, he would also waste a strand of lightning essence. How could Lu Taiping have the 7 Treasures Thunder Calabash? Chapter 1578. Lu Ping's sudden use of the 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash not only shocked Ping Daoren, but even Long Huai Ancestor and the rest did not expect Lu Ping to have such a powerful weapon in his hands. Although the 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash was not the true heaven-opening artifact that Ping Daoren had back then, it was still a genuine 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash. However, the lightning source above Taoist Ping's head had already lost the protection of a true heaven-splitting artifact after the Battle of Mount Xiang. Although Taoist Ping had reabsorbed most of it, at the end of the day, the most powerful part of the 7 Treasures Lightning Calabash was the lightning source it nurtured. The calabash itself was only a special quality vessel. However, this vessel had an unparalleled attraction to the lightning source. With the 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash, Lu Ping could completely ignore the backlash of Ping Daoren using the lightning source. Not only that, Lu Ping even began to actively use the lightning calabash to snatch the lightning source. Snatch, he was indeed snatching. Unlike Long Huai Ancestor's obstruction, Xiang Laozu's harassment, and Butterfly Fairy's small skirmishes, Lu Ping used the 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash to directly compete with Ping Daoren for the lightning source. Ping Daoren wanted to use the lightning source to reconstruct his body's god art. Every god art required a large amount of lightning source. Although Lu Ping could not control a large amount of lightning source like Ping Daoren, Lu Ping did not need to slow down the absorption of the lightning source like Ping Daoren. The 7 Treasure Lightning Calabash was like a bottomless pit. Although the absorption speed was not fast, it was very balanced and continuously absorbing the lightning source that Ping Daoren had been nurturing for tens of thousands of years. Taoist Ping had been accumulating for 10,000 years, and his thunder origin was more than enough to condense 9 origin divine abilities. Unfortunately, it couldn't withstand the 7 Treasures Thunder Gourd's plundering. It wouldn't be long before he ran out of thunder origin. Ping Daoren revealed a look of panic for the first time. If it was said that Lu Ping and the others working together to disturb Ping Daoren's absorption of the 7 sources only made him angry, but he still regarded them as clowns in his heart, the current Ping Daoren finally revealed a look of panic for the first time. If he still couldn't condense the source of lightning, then all his plans from the time he split open the heavens until now would really be for naught. 8 sources, each source had been opened, but none of them could be condensed to perfection. This meant that Pandaren had a powerful body formed from the life or a fiend, but his cultivation was still in the first true spirit realm. This was fine, but the most important thing was that the 8 sources could not be condensed. This meant that Pandaren would lose the chance to break into the 9th true spirit realm with the 8 god arts. If he couldn't reach the primal chaos realm, his path to immortality would be cut off. Pandaren no longer had the arrogance and scrutiny from before. He gritted his teeth as he stared at Lu Ping, who was calmly absorbing the lightning source with the 7 treasure lightning calabash. His terrifying gaze seemed like it wanted to swallow him up. Unfortunately, Taoist Ping still didn't dare to move his body rashly at this moment. Once his body moved, the divine ability he was condensing would definitely be severed. It was better to seize this opportunity to seize more origins and cultivate one divine ability. Taoist Ping was horrified and shocked. Why did such a thought emerge in his mind? The supreme confidence he had when victory was within his grasp had actually slipped away unknowingly. This group of ants had actually forced him into such a situation. Thinking back to when the 7 of them fought here, he was the only one who survived because he had a higher cultivation. However, he was heavily injured and had no choice but to give up his body when he was on the verge of death. He used his true spirit to fuse with this world's source to live until now. However, it was true that fusing with the source of heaven and earth would allow one's true spirit to be indestructible, but if one were to contend against the source of heaven and earth with the strength of one person, the source of heaven and earth would constantly assimilate one's true spirit and obliterate one's intelligence. In the end, one would become a puppet of the world. Although one ruled over the world, one would lose all emotions and desires. Taoist Ping would no longer be himself. What Taoist Ping had schemed for over 30,000 years was nothing more than to break free from the barrier of this world's quintessence and return to himself. For this, he didn't hesitate to seal off the path to immortality that led outside of this world, hunt down true spirit cultivators, seize their quintessence, create the demon Luo clan, incessantly provoke calamities, gather baleful spirits in the midst of death, reconstruct his physical body, and accumulate the quintessence of heaven and earth. Now that everything was about to be completed, he never thought that it would be destroyed by a human cultivator at the last moment. This was definitely not possible. This sovereign could move unhindered across the world in order to live a free and unfettered life. If the path to immortality was cut off, what was the point of living for thousands of years? Taoist Ping stared fixedly at the 7 treasures lightning calabash above Lu Ping's head, his eyes flashing with hope and greed. If he could seize the calabash in one fell swoop, he would at least be able to delay the condensation of the thunder element's energy. Then, he might still have a chance of achieving immortality. Pandaren suddenly shouted, and the lightning source that had condensed into a ball in the air suddenly surged like boiling water. A ball of golden lightning water suddenly exploded in the void, directly breaking through the void and pouring down on Lu Ping's body. This bolt of lightning directly consumed 1/3 of the remaining lightning source, which was the limit that Pandaren could control at this moment. He wanted to use this lightning source to break through the limit that Lu Ping could control and break Lu Ping's control over the 7 treasures lightning gourd. It would be best if he could take this opportunity to snatch this lightning gourd. The surging lightning river made Lu Ping feel great fear for a moment. He had no choice but to loudly shout, "Fellow cultivators, help me!" With that, a pure yang giant cauldron rose up and floated under the 7 treasures lightning gourd. Long Huai ancestor immediately saw through Ping Doran's plan and took the initiative to help, saying, "Protect the lightning gourd!" No matter what individual means, only the 7 treasures lightning gourd could resist the lightning source. Otherwise, in front of the lightning source, others could only wait helplessly for death. The lightning river fell down, and the 7 treasures lightning gourd was instantly submerged. However, the lightning river suddenly shrank, and the lightning gourd absorbed 1/3 of this lightning river. Although this lightning river exceeded the current limit that the 7 treasures lightning gourd could absorb, it could not burst it. Pandaren would not destroy his last hope. His original goal was to control Lu Ping's 7 treasures lightning gourd. A gigantic hammer smashed down from the sky. At that moment, the surface of the crystal hammer was riddled with bumps and hollows. There were traces of it being corroded by the origin of lightning. It did not look like a heaven-opening god artifact at all. Instead, it looked more like a broken lump of iron. However, the more that was the case, the more it gave off a powerful and oppressive aura. Perhaps, this was the original appearance of this heaven-opening god artifact. Gulp! A muffled sound came, like the giant hammer splashing a big bubble in the lightning river. It even brought up a ripple, and the lightning river shrank by a third again. The crystal hammer passed through the river, and there was still a strong lightning left on the body of the divine weapon. With a crisp crackling sound, a mottled crystal the size of a fist fell off the giant hammer, making the divine weapon look even more broken. Ah! A scream suddenly came from the pure yang giant cauldron floating above Lu Ping's head. The lightning river pierced straight into the cauldron, instantly piercing through it. A pure yang spirit treasure was broken, and the remaining 1/3 of the lightning river was inevitably blocked. Chapter 1579. When Ping Daoren tried to kill Lu Ping with the original power of thunder, besides Long Huai ancestor, Xiang Laozu and the butterfly fairy also made their moves. However, they did not go to help Lu Ping. Instead, they both rushed towards Ping Doran's body. Apart from Taoist Ping's absorption of the 7 great essences, the 4 of them had already joined forces to disrupt the rest. Only the lightning essence was left to condense Taoist Ping's divine abilities and protect his newly reconstructed body. However, this time, Ping Daoren suddenly mobilized so much original power of thunder to kill Lu Ping. The original power of thunder, which was used to protect his body, was greatly reduced except for the power of thunder. Almost at the same time, the 2 of them realized that their chance had come. Therefore, they both tried to destroy Ping Doran's rebuilt body. As for Lu Ping, it was his duty to fight for the chance of immortality. Xiang Laozu, who had been harassing Ping Daoren from the outside, suddenly smashed his 15-ton cudgel at Ping Doran's body, while the butterfly fairy protected herself with the turtle shield. Ignoring the cracks on the shield, she directly bumped into Ping Doran's body. With a thunderous boom, the small amount of original power of thunder, which had been used to protect Ping Doran's body, was shattered by the 15-ton cudgel. Immediately after, the butterfly fairy bumped into Ping Daoren, and the small amount of original power of thunder became even thinner. At the same time, a tremendous impact came. For a moment, Ping Daoren was stunned. He could no longer stay still, and had to take a few steps back to dissipate the impact. With a crisp crack, even though this turtle shield was made of Taoist Gui's body of true spirit, it could no longer withstand the double pressure from the butterfly fairy and the original power of thunder, and instantly shattered. However, the shattered tortoise shield was still shimmering with light. If one took a closer look, they would be able to see that the runes left on the shattered tortoise shield were the runes that were able to withstand the tempering of the thunder origin source. Although the runes were scattered across the shattered tortoise shell, they formed a complete whole. Furthermore, after being tempered by the origin of lightning, the quality of the shattered tortoise shell had even improved slightly. The moment the tortoise shield shattered, the fragments shot towards Ping Doran's body at the same time. The 9 fragments embedded themselves into the thunder essence that Ping Daoren had used to protect his body in different directions. As the fragments shot out, a blood-red light, hidden by the fragments, headed straight for Ping Doran's heart. "Shatter the armor and break the formation!" Ping Daoren let out a strange cry. Clearly, he knew what this deliberate attack of the butterfly fairy meant. However, by now, he had used most of the power he had accumulated to kill Lu Ping and snatch the 7 treasures Thunder Calabash. Facing this attack from the butterfly fairy, he was somewhat powerless, unless. Seeing the fragments penetrate into different parts of the original power of thunder, the butterfly fairy's face lit up with joy. "Break!" she cried. "Not good!" Pandoran's expression changed instantly. Just as he was about to do something else, he saw the 9 pieces of tortoiseshell embedded in the original power of thunder suddenly explode. This time, the 9 pieces of tortoiseshell completely turned into powder. Immediately, the last layer of the original power of thunder protecting Pandoran's body exploded into pieces. The area within a radius of tens of feet was filled with golden snakes of lightning. Xiang Laozu and the butterfly fairy clearly had a tacit understanding. In a split second, Xiang Laozu had already abandoned the 1,000-pound staff that had been damaged by the original power of thunder. Just as the original power of thunder was destroyed by the butterfly fairy, the cauldron of creation suddenly tilted and a colorful thick liquid poured down from the mouth of the cauldron. The thick liquid flowed in all directions and continued to dilute. However, with Pandoran's body as the center, it formed a colorful ring of light that continuously spread in all directions. Wherever the colorful ring of light passed, the exploded original power of thunder was pushed outwards. The area around Pandoran was empty. There was no longer anything to protect him. At the same time, the blood light of the blood-dissipating needle no longer needed to cover its tracks. It did not even care about the blood mist around it being dissipated by the lightning. It just rushed towards Pandoran's heart. Just as Xiang Laozu and the butterfly fairy cooperated tacitly and attacked Pandoran at the same time, Lu Ping had also reached the moment of life and death. Although the original power of thunder was jointly eliminated by Lu Ping and the Longhui ancestor by 2/3, the remaining lightning still directly obliterated the spirit of the Linglong wine cauldron. It even turned this pure yang spiritual treasure into a pool of molten iron that spilled everywhere. Although the original power of thunder was slightly blocked by the Linglong wine cauldron, it still continued to fall on top of Lu Ping's head. However, this moment was enough for Lu Ping to respond. Amidst the rising purple gas, a long, distant roar that seemed to bring with it the vicissitudes of life came. The purple gas tumbled, as if an ancient existence was winding its way through the void. Occasionally, it would reveal some scales and claws. Even the steaming purple gas could not hide its golden light. As the river of thunder poured in, the purple chi did not wither but swelled even more. Vaguely, there was the sound of waves surging in the purple chi, like the fog that filled the eastern sky when the tide surged. Suddenly, there seemed to be a pearl that shone with a blazing light like the rising sun. Even the thick purple chi could not cover it, and there seemed to be a huge body circling around the pearl. The roars came again and again, and the sound of the waves rolled. The purple chi became more and more violent. Lightning climbed on the purple chi, like a purple cloud with a golden edge. It also seemed like a golden net was woven in the sky, trying to trap something inside. Ancestor Long Hui shot over like a bolt of lightning, and he saw the violet energy rising and stretching for almost 3 kilometers. However, his divine sense was forcefully obstructed by the violet energy, and he was utterly unable to find out the truth behind it. Long Hui ancestor wanted to rush into the purple chi several times to help, and he wanted to see what kind of power Lu Ping was hiding inside, but the fruitless probing of his divine thoughts gave him a sense of extreme danger. For some reason, Long Hui ancestor had a vague feeling that Lu Ping would definitely be safe. At this moment, Xiang Laozu's furious and shocked shout rang out in the distance. When he turned to look, he saw Butterfly Fairy shrieking in pain as her body was sent flying backwards. Blood splattered in the air, forming a blood-red mist. Long Hui ancestor was shocked. He took a deep look at the purple chi, then turned and flew towards where Pandoran was. Before he could even be seen, Long Hui ancestor had already shouted, "Fellow Xiang, don't panic! I'm coming!" In the depths of the churning purple chi, although Lu Ping had turned into a true dragon, he was already at the end of his tether. Beneath his true dragon form was a sea of lightning source. Lu Ping had actually turned the sea of lightning source into a pool of lightning at the very last moment. He wanted to make this ball of lightning source his own. This was a gamble of life and death. If he succeeded, he would be able to resolve the crisis and even reach the heavens in a single step. If he failed, he would be reduced to ashes, and everything would be for naught. Chapter 1580. Taking advantage of the moment when Ping Daoren attacked Lu Ping, the Butterfly Fairy and Xiang Laozu joined hands to attack Ping Daoren. At the cost of destroying Taoist Guy's true spirit carapace and 15-ton cudgel, they broke the protective source of Ping Daoren's body, and even forced Ping Daoren's body to retreat to neutralize their joint attack. The Butterfly Fairy took the opportunity to attack Ping Daoren, who had lost the protection of the source of thunder, with the blood magic needle. Seeing that Ping Daoren was about to be hit, the Butterfly Fairy could not hold back her excitement. However, as soon as the smile appeared on the Butterfly Fairy's face, it froze, and then her eyes widened, revealing a trace of fear. In the reflection of her eyes, Ping Daoren, who had been passively resisting the besiegement of the others, suddenly moved. Ping Daoren naturally pinched his right thumb and index finger. The blood magic needle seemed to be sent to his hand on purpose, and was easily pinched by Ping Daoren in front of his chest. Ping Daoren's body moved. How could he move? Wasn't it said that his newly reconstructed body couldn't move when he infused his divine power into it? At this time, the divine power he was focusing on moved before it was perfected. Could it be? The Butterfly Fairy suddenly realized something, and the panic on her face immediately eased. She was about to warn the others, but she saw that Ping Daoren looked down at the blood magic needle in his hand, then shook his head, his face full of pity and contempt. Then, without even looking at the Butterfly Fairy, who was not far away, he suddenly waved his hand. In an instant, the Butterfly Fairy seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. She didn't even have time to prepare for defense before she was sent flying by a tremendous force. Accompanied by a shrill scream in the air, there was only a mist of blood all over the sky. Little Chana's things can only be used to stab people in the hands of a useless descendant like you? Taoist Ping didn't even raise his head, and he seemed to be so indifferent and casual as he spoke casually. However, the ears of Ancestor Long Huai who'd rushed over to assist Taoist Ping were filled with killing intent. When his body was shaken, it meant that Ping Daoren's plan of cultivating all 8 realms at the same time, and restoring his original power to the perfect realm had been completely ruined. It would be strange if Ping Daoren didn't want to kill him. But now, not only were Long Huai Ancestor and Xiang Laozu not shocked by Ping Daoren's tyrannical strength of severely injuring the Butterfly Fairy, they were overjoyed and determined that this was the best time for them to defeat Ping Daoren. Ping Daoren cultivated all 8 realms at the same time, but none of his original powers had been cultivated to perfection. In other words, although Ping Daoren had opened all 8 original powers, strictly speaking, his cultivation was only at the true spirit realm. He was even weaker than the few of them who were at the perfection realm of the true spirit realm. If this wasn't a heaven-sent opportunity, then what was it? The two of them no longer cared about the life or death of the Butterfly Fairy. They didn't even care about Lu Ping's life or death. They attacked Ping Daoren together from the front and back. My plan for tens of thousands of years has been ruined in the hands of you juniors. Even if I grind your bones and scatter your ashes, it won't be enough. I only have hatred in my heart. I want to dig out your hearts, dig out your true spirits, and turn your bodies into puppets. I'll make your true spirits suffer the most vicious torture in this world. Haha, at that time, your puppets will be the torturers. Ping Daoren's words were filled with laughter, but there was no trace of a smile on his face. There was only a cold expression that made people tremble. Even though the condensation of Taoist Peng's essence divine ability had yet to reach perfection, his strength was still terrifyingly formidable. Patriarch Long Huai tried to use the vines formed from his natal spirit treasure to restrain Taoist Peng, but unexpectedly, the vines were torn apart by Taoist Peng's tyrannical physical strength. Even Patriarch Long Huai himself was unable to control his own body. If he had not reacted quickly enough, he would have been dragged to Taoist Peng's side. Xiang Laozu took the opportunity to attack from behind. Ping Daoren frowned slightly and had to give up the idea of chasing after Long Huai Ancestor. He only had time to strike a palm at Long Huai Ancestor from afar. Even this casual palm strike made Long Huai Ancestor feel as if he was facing a great enemy. the wine cauldron of heaven and earth above his head spun rapidly in front of him, bringing with it a strange force. Any magical power that entered the protection of the cauldron would be diverted. However, this method clearly had no effect on Pingdoran's palm. The cauldron shook and a spirit ape let out a pitiful cry before it stopped spinning. However, Longhua Ancestor, who was deep inside the cauldron, could feel a powerful force coming from the cauldron. Longhua Ancestor's face instantly turned red and he forcefully swallowed back the blood in his throat. On the world-treasured cauldron, an artifact spirit ape's body was directly blasted apart, and it transformed into a ball of pure quintessence that dispersed into the surroundings. Ancestor Longhua took the cauldron in his hand, and he instantly gasped. Only now did he notice that an enormous palm print had appeared on the cauldron's wall. Pingdoran's cultivation was only in the first true spirit realm, but his strength was still this strong. While Longhua Ancestor was hesitating, Xiang Laozu on the side couldn't hold on any longer, and he called out to the Longhua Ancestor experts for help. It was already a moment of life and death. They couldn't suffer any more injuries. Longhua Ancestor roused his spirit, and the broken crystal hammer flew out once again, directly smashing down at Pingdoran's descendant. Looking past Pingdoran's back, Longhua Ancestor could see that Xiang Laozu had already turned into a true spirit realm. The 15-ton rod had been continuously destroyed by Pingdoran, and now it looked like a bow. The good fortune cauldron's lid had already been opened and the source energy from the void was continuously pouring into it. Then the 5-element source energy poured out from the pot, trying to replenish Xiang Laozu's energy consumption. There was also a spirit fan made of 5 colored feathers that was fanning in the air. Together with the 5-element source energy coming from the good fortune cauldron, the two complemented each other, and it was actually able to dissolve half of Pingdoran's attack. It was because of this that Xiang Laozu was able to hold on against Pingdoran for a while. 5-element spirit light fan. He didn't think that the treasure of the Endless Mountains peacock royalty would actually fall into the hands of Xiang Laozu. This treasure was Pingdoran's life treasure. Its quality was the same as the 15-ton rod and it was not inferior to the other 6 sacred weapons. After Pingdoran saw this treasure, he was unable to restrain his anger. However, after tens of thousands of years, the divine sense imprint he left in the treasure had already been erased by the previous generations of peacock kings. Now that his body had been reconstructed, the treasure no longer recognized its old master. Just as Pingdoran gave up on condensing the 8 realms' divine ability, and wholeheartedly wanted to kill everyone to vent his anger, Lu Ping's purple clouds were flashing with lightning and rolling thunder. He had opened up his sea of origin after reaching the true spirit realm and was trying to fuse with the source of thunder. Chapter 1581. The reason why Lu Ping had to take such a huge risk to subdue this thunder origin was naturally because he had no other choice. In order to snatch the 7 treasure lightning calabash from him, Pingdoran had released a third of the thunder origin he had condensed in one fell swoop. This was so that he could not avoid it, and could only resist the impact of this absolute power. Lu Ping could naturally choose to resist it head-on instead of taking the risk of absorbing it. However, both of them carried the same risk for Lu Ping. Since that was the case, why didn't Lu Ping choose the path that would greatly benefit him if he succeeded? Moreover, Lu Ping was not blindly reckless. The origin sea he condensed came from the triple light sacred water. Before Lu Ping became a true spirit, one of the 3 heaven-grade spirit waters that he had refined was the genuine lightning tribulation water. It was the condensation of the essence of the lightning tribulation. Normally, it was already a great blessing for a cultivator to be able to refine one portion, and it was only a matter of time before they became a powerful cultivator in the future. Moreover, Lu Ping had refined 3 portions in one go. Of course, although the thunder tribulation water was the essence of the thunder tribulation, its quality was still far from being comparable to the origin of thunder. Above the thunder tribulation, there was the heavenly punishment, and only those above the heavenly punishment could touch the origin of thunder. However, Lu Ping's true essence contained the power of thunder. After all, they were of the same origin, so naturally, the thunder tribulation water would be of some help. Apart from that, Lu Ping's greatest reliance was that he had once used his 7-treasure lightning calabash to snatch a drop of the thunder origin from the Yuan clan during the Battle of Shang Mountain and refined it. After that, he obtained something similar when he was killing the remnants of the Yuan clan. After Lu Ping became a true spirit, he tried to use this as an opportunity to cultivate the thunder origin and walk the path of cultivating all 8 realms at the same time. However, a few drops of the thunder origin were far from enough to cultivate the thunder origin. The first dragon scale of the true spirit dragon, which represented the thunder origin, had only been half soaked by the thunder origin. It was far from completely cultivating all 8 realms at the same time. Even so, these treasures were enough to lay a solid foundation for him to cultivate the origin of thunder. When Daoist Ping attacked him with the origin of thunder, Lu Ping had no choice but to morph into his true spirit form. With the San Guang godly water as the foundation, he turned his true spirit ocean into his true spirit dragon's territory. Then, he cast out his natal pure yang dragon pearl to suppress Daoist Ping. With so many methods, in addition to the 7-treasure lightning calabash weakening the thunder origin and the help of the Longhui ancestor, Lu Ping was still walking on the edge of life and death while suppressing the thunder origin and cultivating the thunder ability. The true spirit dragon circled above the sea of origin. Lu Ping had already cultivated all 7 realms at the same time to suppress the chaos in the sea of origin. The thunder origin was running amok in the sea of origin. It could not completely merge with the sea of origin. The first scale of the true spirit dragon, which represented the thunder origin, had already been soaked by 3/4 of the thunder origin. However, the progress was very slow. At this moment, Lu Ping's control of the spiritual force had reached its limit. Suppressing the thunder origin consumed not only a large amount of spiritual force, but also a huge amount of spiritual force. The thunder origin could clearly destroy a cultivator's spiritual force, but Lu Ping had to rely on his huge spiritual force to control everything in front of him. In addition, the thing that was bearing the most pressure was Lu Ping's physical body. In fact, when Lu Ping cultivated the first realm of the true spirit realm to perfection, he could fuse his physical body with his true spirit and completely transform into a dragon's true spirit. At that time, there would be no difference between his physical body and true spirit. Moreover, it would allow Lu Ping's strength to greatly increase. At this moment, Xiang Laozu, who was entangled with Ping Daoren, and the heavily injured butterfly fairy were both using this method. They could switch between their physical body and true spirit at any time. As for Longhui ancestor, he had never transformed his body into a true spirit. Perhaps he had the same idea as Lu Ping. The dragon scales on the true spirit dragon's body that represented the magical power of the origin had already stood up. The true spirit dragon was doing its best to revolve around the pure young dragon bead. Using the dragon bead as a medium, it continuously turned its own spiritual force into a magical power that was applied to the sea of origin. It suppressed the thunder origin and tried its best to fuse it with the sea of origin to open the thunder origin. However, no matter how much Lu Ping suppressed the fusion, he could only use 3/4 of the dragon scales to open the thunder origin. At this time, Lu Ping's spiritual force and true essence had already reached their limit. If there was no turning point, Lu Ping would have to give up on the thunder origin in order to protect himself. He would even have to destroy most of his sea of origin, causing heavy damage to his own foundation. At this critical moment, Lu Ping was in a state of indigestion after absorbing enough of the lightning source. But just as he was about to fall into a crisis, the thunder gourd suddenly spat out a stream of lightning source that had been completely subdued by the thunder gourd. Although this source of thunder was extremely small, it became the key to breaking out of Lu Ping's predicament at this moment of life and death. The Thunder 7 Treasures calabash had followed Lu Ping almost from the moment it was formed. It had been nourished by Lu Ping's spiritual force and had grown under the watchful eyes of Lu Ping. Although it was not Lu Ping's life spirit treasure, it was one of the spirit treasures that had followed Lu Ping for the longest time. It could almost communicate with Lu Ping's mind. In Lu Ping's most critical moment, the Thunder 7 Treasures calabash sensed that something was wrong. After sending out this Thunder Origin, it didn't consume too much energy before it was completely absorbed by the Sea of Origin. Then, this Thunder Origin flowed upwards, following the Origin Dragon Pearl all the way into the body of the true spirit. Then, the first Thunder Attribute Dragon Scale began to shine with a brilliant light. With the help of this Thunder Origin, it successfully dyed the rest of the Dragon Scale. Lu Ping's true Dragon Spirit's Thunder Elemental Origin energy was finally awakened. Initially, the Thunder Elemental Origin energy didn't show any signs of merging with the Sea of Origin energy. But the moment the Thunder Elemental Origin energy was awakened, half of it was drawn out by the first Dragon Scale. Countless runes appeared on the Dragon Scale, flashing with the power of lightning. Lu Ping's first Thunder Elemental Origin energy was drawn on the Dragon Scale. And the first Thunder Attribute magical ability that Lu Ping condensed came from the inheritance of the Yuan family. After the Battle of Shang Mountain, the Yuan family had collapsed, and the foundation that they had accumulated since the opening of the heavens had all been taken by the major forces that had participated in that battle. Among them, the Thunder Attribute magical abilities that the Yuan family had inherited had been deliberately looted by Xinling. Just as Lu Ping had successfully opened his Thunder Attribute magical ability and condensed his first Thunder Attribute magical ability, becoming a Realm 8 cultivator that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Ping Daoren, who had reconstructed his body, the Thunder Attribute magical ability that was originally resisting Lu Ping's Sea of Origin completely calmed down. And after subduing the Thunder Attribute magical ability that was originally used to kill him, the Sea of Origin surged up. Together with the remaining Thunder Attribute magical ability that had not yet been refined, the Thunder Attribute magical ability was absorbed into the pure Yang Dragon Pearl and then swallowed by the true Spirit Dragon. The purple gas in the surroundings condensed, and as the true Spirit Dragon returned to his body, Lu Ping took a deep breath. The cultivation changes brought about by the 8 realms' simultaneous cultivation made Lu Ping deeply feel the increase in his strength. And this qualitative change came from the opening of the Thunder Attribute magical ability, which was an extremely difficult threshold for true Spirit Realm cultivators to cross. Now that this threshold had been broken, Lu Ping had the potential to temporarily stand shoulder to shoulder with Ping Daoren. Chapter 1582. The 7 realms cultivation was broken and the 8 realms cultivation was also interrupted before it reached perfection. Ping Daoren was the same as Lu Ping, he had opened the 8 sources, but his cultivation was still in the first true spirit realm. But even like this, facing the joint attacks of Longhua Ancestor and Xiang Laozu, Ping Daoren could still advance and retreat as he pleased. Instead, as time went on, Xiang Laozu and Longhua Ancestor were once again suppressed by Ping Daoren. Strictly speaking, Ping Daoren hadn't even reached the peak of the first true spirit realm. His cultivation was even lower than Longhua Ancestor and the others. The different attributed techniques were skillfully connected. Although Ping Daoren couldn't combine the different attributed techniques to form a new and even more powerful technique like when he reached the 8th true spirit realm, his dazzling control over the various techniques allowed Xiang Laozu and Longhua Ancestor to have cultivations not weaker than Ping Daoren, but they couldn't keep up with Ping Daoren's attacks, falling into a passive situation. If it wasn't for Xiang Laozu having the 5-element spirit light fan that could weaken a lot of the 5 elemental techniques and the good fortune cauldron's replenishment, even if Xiang Laozu had the number 1 tyrannical turtle avatar in the world, he would have already collapsed under Ping Daoren's attacks. Longhua Ancestor's situation wasn't any better. The crystal hammer had already been shattered by Ping Daoren and 3 of the heaven and earth wine cauldron's 5 artifact spirits had been destroyed, but the tree branch life spirit treasure in his hand was not a small matter. At this time, Longhua Ancestor could no longer hide his strength under Ping Daoren's suppression. His cultivation of the 6 realms was released, and although it couldn't keep up with Ping Doran's ability, he could still protect himself with the spirit tree spirit treasure in his hand. Long Huai Ancestor had really hidden his strength. With the 6 realms at the same time, Long Huai Ancestor finally transformed into a true spirit. He used the Wujiao to achieve Dao and was also the original body of a 10,000-year-old dragon locust tree. After transforming into a true spirit, his huge body far exceeded Lu Ping's true spirit dragon. After all, it had tens of thousands of years of accumulation. Perhaps in terms of bloodline, Lu Ping's starting point was higher, but in terms of accumulation, Long Huai Ancestor was stronger. Ancestor Xiang and Ancestor Long Huai withdrew their true spirit bodies at the same time, causing their situation to improve slightly. However, in next to no time, they fell into a passive state under Taoist Peng's even more ferocious suppression. Even though Peng Daoren cultivated 8 realms at the same time and did not cultivate any of the original elemental attributes to perfection, he used the life fiend as a foundation and absorbed large amounts of original spiritual energy to reconstruct his corporeal body, which far exceeded the 2's true spirit bodies. A bolt of lightning suddenly exploded in front of him, scaring Xiang Laozu, who was concentrating on defending against Ping Doran's attack, so much that he almost turned around and fled. When he looked over in the blink of an eye, he saw a few layers of ripples in the void, and a few indiscernible wind blades had already sneaked into the space around him. When they were about to attack together, they were obstructed by this lightning spell that crossed the sky. Xiang Laozu's first reaction was that help had come. His expression immediately brightened, but then he realized that it was actually a lightning thunder-type supernatural power. Only a primordial supernatural power could obstruct a primordial supernatural power. Then, who was this thunder-type primordial supernatural power? Lu Ping, this human cultivator. It was actually him, and it could only be him. He was actually able to survive the attack of Ping Doran's thunder-type supernatural power. He was actually able to use the thunder-type supernatural power for his own use and activate the thunder-type supernatural power cultivation. There was a prerequisite for activating the thunder-type supernatural power cultivation, and that was to activate all 7 major supernatural powers. This also meant that Lu Ping had already cultivated 7 realms at the same time before. Now, just like Ping Daoren, he had successfully cultivated 8 realms at the same time. Xiang Laozu was not the only one who was shocked. Long Huai Ancestor was also in disbelief the moment Lu Ping made his move. On the side, Peng Daoren even shouted, "Impossible! How can you activate 7 realms at the same time? How can you activate the thunder-type supernatural power? This is impossible, absolutely impossible!" In his opinion, when he mobilized 1/3 of the thunder-type supernatural power he had accumulated to kill a human cultivator, Lu Ping was already dead. But now, not only did this human cultivator not die, he even sacrificed his own thunder essence to Lu Ping. Lu Ping had profited from his misfortune, and was now able to cultivate the thunder essence. What was most difficult for Taoist Ping to accept was the fact that ever since he started his plan to split the sky open, he had only barely managed to reach the 8th level after overcoming many obstacles. But this human cultivator had only cultivated for a short period of time, yet he was already on par with him. How could Taoist Ping accept this? The enraged Ping Daoren displayed his invincible might. Even with Lu Ping's help, the 3 of them could not do anything to Ping Daoren for a while. Often, when the others only used 1 supernatural power, Ping Daoren would have already used 2 or 3 supernatural powers in succession. Furthermore, after Taoist Ping unleashed his abilities, he was able to rapidly change his stance midway by relying on the mutual augmentation and restraint of his essence to deal with any mishaps that might occur at any time. Furthermore, he was able to avoid wasting his true essence to the greatest extent. This was also the key to why Taoist Ping was able to deal with the combined attacks of the 3 of them with ease. Although Ping Daoren had not cultivated any of his sources to perfection, each of his 7 sources had condensed 7 or 8 supernatural powers. Although the thunder source had been destroyed the most, he had condensed 3 or 4 supernatural powers. The number of supernatural powers he had far surpassed Lu Ping and the others. Lu Ping quickly saw the clues. Although most of Ping Doran's strength came from his tyrannical body, his quick control of the supernatural powers, and his dazzling adaptability, behind these methods was Ping Doran's powerful divine sense maintaining everything. If the current Ping Doran was compared to the Ping Doran at the beginning of the world's creation, then perhaps the only difference would be Ping Doran's divine sense, which was still equivalent to the seventh true spirit realm. Restrict his divine sense! Ping Doran's expression suddenly changed and his fierce eyes immediately looked at Lu Ping. It was clear that Lu Ping's words had caught Ping Doran's weakness. The moment Lu Ping shouted out a warning, the Long Hui ancestor had already inserted the life source spirit treasure in his hand into the heaven and earth wine cauldron. A blue branch on the spirit treasure quickly turned blue and a bud slowly grew on the branch, gradually forming a flower bud. As the heaven and earth wine cauldron continued to pour spiritual energy into the spirit tree, the flower buds slowly bloomed and a black mist came out from the center of the flower. The wisp of black mist seemed light, but when it spread out, it turned into a thick, rolling fog that quickly enveloped Taoist Ping. This was the poisonous mist imprisoned by the heavenly poison wall. At the end of the day, the firmament of poison wall was similar to the myriad poison source potion that Lu Ping controlled. Both originated from the poison pellet concocted by Taoist Gui in the past. The only difference was that Lu Ping's myriad poison source potion was more toxic, but it couldn't spread and cover an area as easily as the firmament of poison wall. Chapter 1583. The poisonous fog in the firmament of myriad poisons naturally had a great restrictive effect on divine thoughts. The moment the Long Hui ancestor made his move, Lu Ping had indeed sensed a subtle change in Ping Doran's magical power. However, this change was completely unfathomable to Lu Ping and the others. This was because Ping Doran's divine thoughts were too broad. Even though the poisonous fog was restricting him, the damage to Ping Doran's strength was still limited. A bewitching black flame suddenly ignited in the black mist and spread to all the places that the black mist could reach. The swaying black flame always gave off an indescribable feeling, as though an abyss of hidden mysteries was open to you, causing you to willingly devote all your attention to it while your heart was in a trance. Black prison poisonous fire. Originally, it was just an ordinary heaven and earth strange fire. However, as Lu Ping continued to devour the world's strange poisons, especially the poisonous fog in the firmament of myriad poisons and the golden fog formed by the myriad poisons liquid, the power of this heaven and earth strange fire rose greatly. Now, with the help of the power of the poisonous fog in the firmament of myriad poisons, its power had more than doubled. No matter how strong Ping Doran's divine thoughts were, he had no choice but to face this method. Ping Doran's response was also very simple. A thunder ball suddenly fell into the black flame. Then, the thunder ball exploded, and a thunder net spread out in all directions with the thunder ball as the center. All the poisonous fog and black prison poisonous fire within the range of the thunder net were rapidly weakened and even melted. The origin of lightning could cleanse the world of all evil and sinister methods, and its might was indisputably the strongest of the 8 great origins. Whether it was the poisonous mist hidden in the sky wall, or the dark prison ven of fire that fed on strange poisons, in front of Taoist Peng's origin of lightning, they melted like snow under the scorching sun. Another bolt of lightning flashed across the sky. Countless thunder lines split from this thick bolt of lightning. They were densely packed like the branches of a giant tree, or like a huge lightning broom. They swept away the thunder net that Ping Doran used to wash away the black fog and black prison poisonous fire. This bolt of lightning was Lu Ping's lightning elemental essence. Naturally, only the lightning elemental essence could defend against the lightning elemental essence. Not to mention, the lightning elemental essence was a type of essence that was highly destructive to divine sense. After all, his cultivation was not enough. Ping Doran had no choice but to temporarily retract his divine thoughts to avoid the attack. Fortunately, this kind of large-scale killing magical power did not distinguish between friend and foe. Although Lu Ping had broken Ping Doran's thunder net, it would not cover a large area. Otherwise, it would restrict the other two people who had joined hands with him. Although Ping Doran's divine thoughts were only partially restricted, it was enough for Ping Doran's magical power to change between attacks. Xiang Laozu also realized the importance of restraining Ping Doran's divine thoughts. He reached out and patted the cauldron of creation above his head. The huge body of the cauldron immediately began to spin rapidly. 5-colored yuan qi drifted out from the cauldron. However, it was no longer used to replenish Xiang Laozu's own real essence. Instead, it was like 5-colored dust that drifted in all directions. After the 5-elemental origin dust dispersed, it contaminated the divine thoughts that were everywhere. As a result, the cultivators had no choice but to give up on the contaminated divine thoughts. Xiang Laozu still seemed to be a little worried. He simply waved the 5-elemental spirit light fan in his hand. The 5-elemental origin dust spread out even more. As expected, the connection of Ping Doran's magical powers became more and more disorderly. Although this change in rhythm was extremely subtle, for the few people who were fighting, it was enough for them to counterattack. The sword of true spirit whistled through the air and cut into Ping Doran's magical power. After that, it directly broke the water elemental origin power that was reversing to wood elemental origin power. On the other hand, Ping Doran had already spread out an even denser lightning net. However, the area covered by this lightning net was much smaller than when he had destroyed the poisonous mist and black prison poison fire. This lightning net was clearly targeted at Xiang Laozu's 5-elemental origin power. Although Ping Doran's divine thoughts had been continuously restricted by Lu Ping and the others, it was still far from enough for the three of them to completely suppress Ping Doran. Although Lu Ping had interrupted Ping Doran's transformation of magical power, it allowed Longhua Ancestor to take the opportunity to use the numinous treasure to try and counterattack Ping Doran. However, even though Ping Doran's speed of transformation of magical power was restricted, it was still much faster than Lu Ping and the others. Among the three of them, the only one who could match Ping Doran in the transformation of magical power was Lu Ping, who was also a level 8 cultivator. However, his speed of transformation of magical power was still slower than Ping Doran's. He could only follow behind Ping Doran and react passively. Golden mist suddenly appeared around Lu Ping. In the blink of an eye, it had filled a radius of dozens of feet. The golden mist that was emitted by the 10,000 poison source liquid was 100 times more powerful than the golden poisonous mist that Lu Ping had encountered in the 7 Stars Cave Heaven's Golden Valley. Ping Doran snorted. He had no choice but to once again use his thunder attribute magical power to destroy the influence of the poisonous mist. This undoubtedly gave Xiang Laozu and Longhua Ancestor a chance to get rid of the passive suppression. The three of them gradually had a tacit understanding. The three of them took turns to use magical power to suppress the divine thoughts, maintaining the suppression of Ping Doran's divine thoughts. Although this suppression had a negligible effect on Ping Doran's strength, at least it allowed the three of them to fight against Ping Doran from being suppressed to being able to find an opportunity to fight back. It was a pity that Lu Ping had left the 9 Dragons Bell in Jinling as an inheritance treasure. Otherwise, with the power of the 9 Dragons Bell, it could disrupt and even suppress Ping Doran's divine thoughts from beginning to end. And at this moment, a bloody light suddenly inserted itself into the battle where the three of them were besieging Ping Doran. The timing was very precise. It was the moment when Ping Doran's divine thoughts were suppressed. The butterfly fairy, who had been seriously injured by Ping Doran and was on the verge of death, suddenly launched an attack. The appearance of the blood transformation needle was not only unexpected by Lu Ping and the others, but also by Ping Doran. The bloody mist that lingered around the blood transformation needle was originally the best method to erode divine thoughts, but this method was also the most restrained by the thunder attribute magical power. However, at this time, Ping Doran's thunder attribute magical power was focused on dealing with the thought-dissolved powder that Lu Ping had scattered. Under the sneak attack, no matter how resourceful Ping Doran was, he could not display a method to restrain the blood transformation needle for a while. There was a low swoosh sound. In the past, the bloody mist that lingered around the blood transformation needle was actually actively peeling off and spreading this time. Pingdown felt that there was another extremely evil force invading his divine thoughts. At this time, he did not even have time to expel it, because the force that was even more abominable than the one that was eroding his divine thoughts had already rushed towards his body. The blood transformation needle hit. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.